Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is the planning board meeting, the regular meeting of the planning board, Village Dobbs Ferry, on Thursday evening, April 7, 2016. We have 10 items. I see 10 items on the agenda. It looks to me like there's a misnumbering. After number 6, there should be a number 7 where it says pre-submission conference for 548 Broadway, and then renumber 8, 9, 10 below that. But not a big deal.
Yeah, there's an extra one.
Just for the audience on TV and for the record, the planning board has just held a work session over the last hour looking at the Croton Aqueduct and the views from that and implications of things that we could suggest or do to make and retain the beauty of that amenity in the village for us. So we'll be working on that with other boards and committees, and hopefully we'll have more to report later. I would like to move to open the meeting tonight. Is there a second? Second, all in favor? Thank you. The first item on our agenda, which I have not seen for several months, and I want to thank Liz Draper for her work in starting to get our minutes up to date. Liz has had a lot of work over the last several months, as well as dealing with an injury, and so we really understand and appreciate the work that she's done for us. And tonight we have three minutes to deal with: November 4, December 2, and January 2nd. I have reviewed them and found them to be in order. Does anyone else have any comments or corrections on the minutes?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I believe Resolution 16.
What minutes are you in?
I'm sorry, these are November 4th.
Right.
Resolution 16 was about the workflow of the building permit approval process, and should not include the draft minutes starting on page 9. And the next section, 17, has me voting for the resolution, and I voted against the resolution.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any comments?
Did we get March 3rd?
No.
We didn't get it.
We get November, December, and
right.
January. We did
Yeah, 'cause I
not
didn't
get
see it.
February or March.
Okay,
At least that's what I got.
right, that's what I got too.
As corrected, I would move that we approve the minutes as corrected by Mr. Hale. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much. All right, item number 2, a continuation of discussion on site plan issue to the Board of Trustees for 100 Main Street. As everyone on the board and in the audience knows, this has been before us for some time. We had a public hearing that went on for several meetings, which was closed at the last meeting. And the applicant has requested to be on the agenda tonight.
Do we have an opening for mail-in comments? Is it?
We had an opening, I think it was 2 weeks after the last public.
And did we receive comment?
I did not receive any comments within that period, I don't believe. I'm aware of.
Good evening, Pat Kleinstein from Gotham Design Community Development, representing the property at 100 Main Street. At the last meeting, I think there perhaps was confusion on my part of what was going on. I apologize for that. The matter, I think, comes down to the simple one that you made a recommendation I'm still unsure whether the original was to deny or to approve, but you made a recommendation to the Board of Trustees and said if you're going to do anything with this, move in one story. We have prepared a version of that has the story removed. If you'd like me to show it to you, I can do that.
Please.
So basically what we've done, you've got plans of these, I believe.
Yes.
That copy. So we took the top floor off in this middle section. So it's 2 stories above the parking, This building did not change. That's the replacement for the barn structure. This building, we're not proposing any changes to the exterior of it. We do have a connection here. When I went back and watched the tape of the meeting, I think it was Rob who posed the question of if this connection is not desirable, at least as an enclosed conditioned space, which seems to trigger other things that people feel is not as ideal. I would think that that's something that could be proposed as a waiver of enclosing that, if it's indeed even required to have it enclosed, which I think there's question on. So with the exception of that one piece, there's really very little other than that we dropped this down. We changed the roof on this to match the roof pitch of the front building.
The pitch or the height? Just the pitch, not the height, correct?
Right. To match the height of this building, we would have to either have one story or no parking. So this is one of those properties that slopes up. Really hard to see it on here, but we have marked on this the current height limit, which goes up at an angle paralleling that. And we also have showing the height permitted coming straight back, which we're about 1.5 stories below. So this is, when the board talked about doing the change in measuring, I think it's a good move. I think that would be a better way to do it. That has the measurement made at the sidewalk and a line that's horizontal coming back from that instead of following the slope. So we're way under that, obviously. I don't know if there are any other real issues at this point that this board has.
This is the change that you just described is the only change from the one that the board has previously seen?
That's correct. There's no change to the site plan, the drainage, everything else remains the same. To drop that, we did eliminate an apartment. So we have 3 apartments instead of 4. We kept the parking the same. We have 6 parking spaces on site. I think one of the things that at least was confusing to me at the last meeting is the idea that if there are currently 3 people parking there, or 3 cars being parked, that we have to accept that as a basis, and any parking that we're providing gets added to that, which could get us up into paying for pileups. At this point, my understanding from the code is we're doing nothing to that retail space, is there is no parking required for that retail space. There's no parking on the property being used by that retail space. There are 2 apartments, 2 duplex apartments here, which I believe they do use more than 1 parking space. But the requirement right now for 2 duplexes and the 3 flats would be 5 parking spaces, where we're showing 6. If this is enclosed and we're having to make a condition enclosure, it would be nice to have it be used for something. So we have reserved the concept that if we do have to make this, at that point, what we'd be looking to do is to keep 1 flat on the ground floor and then put 2 smaller flats up above that you'd access by the stairs, come up, and you'd walk into your 2 units. So at that point, we'd be back to the 6, with the 6 parking spaces.
Do you happen to have a picture that shows the building, the middle building with the 3rd story on it to compare with this?
Sure. I just don't know how far down it is in this.
I was thinking of an overlay actually, but all right.
No, I mean, this is
Okay.
the,
Previous.
yeah, here's the previous scheme with this is the one that we went to the architectural review board. And the architectural review board had us remove the mansard roof and do this more with metal panels, dark metal panels with a lot of glass. And this was the one that, at least for some moment in time, they had indicated they were supportive of. Every time it seems there's a change going on there, so I don't know that they are still supportive, but I don't know that they're not. But of course, this board's gonna make its own decision. So we made the changes that were recommended. We went to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees then suggested, since we had made changes to this, as recommended by the Architectural Review Board, that we would come back to the Planning Board to see if that change made any difference to the recommendation that this board made. And which is how we kind of got here today.
Could you go to the 3D views that we just saw flashed
Sure.
up?
I mean, those are of the three.
Right, those have not been modified, right?
Okay, so in this case, you take the white line, and that's roughly the height of the eave? Or the-
Yeah, well, no, actually, the eave is down lower. The eave is right about the top, probably of this roof. This line here is not the floor level. That's about 3 feet above the floor.
But generally, everything below that stays the same?
Everything below here stays the same. I mean, we have not looked at fenestration. You know, we've
But in
laid out,
massing- in
make
massing,
the
right.
apartments work. We've got the massing worked out. We would, you know, whether we're keeping these windows there, you know, we haven't even talked about that.
Could you, is there another view that would look at that connection that you were talking about? No? Okay.
What, the breezeway?
Yeah, the
Yeah, I
breezeway.
mean, I can get, if you want me to, which I guess I'm kind of indicating where I want to go with that, I could probably get the sketch up and show it to you in that. Would you want me to do that?
I think, is that part of our discussion tonight? No.
Well, it can be.
You wanna make it?
It can be, if you'd like it to be.
Well, just let me know. I don't want to take your time. If you want
If
to-
it's 1 minute, sure.
This is not what my shop usually looks like.
Steve's roof. You're about to jump off of Steve Tilley's roof to your
Yeah,
death.
that's it.
There you go.
Here it is.
So this as, I mean, this was a toss-off, if you will. It made the physical connection that we understood was necessary to consider it as one building. But we did.
But it's not, in this case though, it's just covered, not conditioned?
Exactly.
And in the best of all, in your mind, would there be any connection at all here? There would just be, right?
You'd leave this building as it is, you'd have this building, and whether that counts as 2 buildings on the site or not, and whether that, I mean, we still have never gotten anything that definitively, there's kind of a series of steps that gets us to the idea that this is a problem. There are other buildings in the downtown, other properties in the downtown that have 2 buildings that have residential. There's nothing in the code that says you can't have 2 buildings with residential. The problem came when it was being interpreted that that would make it a,
Accessory structure.
multifamily housing complex, which you need a special permit for in the downtown.
No.
But if this board felt that there was, I mean, there's nothing building code that requires that. So zoning code doesn't seem to really totally require it either, and the boards certainly have the ability to approve this without that if they wanted to. But maybe they treat it as a waiver.
But just to be clear, that the entire brick tower there would be gone if it didn't need the
No,
connection?
no, the top level.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Of the
this
main
top
building would
level
be gone.
gone. The eave here would be about where that roof is, although it's a different roof, and you'd still have, you come up the stairs, you'd have
Oh,
2
gotcha.
apartments on that, you come up here to the other
Okay.
apartment.
Okay.
There's 3 apartments.
Yeah, I think what it shows in the drawings that were submitted, the
It's 250.
the building with the 2,
It's 250.
with that wood.
Could you get to the
Well, that's-
sidewalk level? Could you get to the sidewalk on
Other
Main?
than that, what's it?
I mean, on Elm, I guess on,
Let's see.
Where do you want to be looking?
I'm trying to look at that connection thing from the sidewalk, not from the...
challenge is these are close together, and I end up inside of Steve's building. It sure doesn't.
All right, thank you.
I mean, to my way of thinking, this is kind of all extraneous.
Yeah.
It would just be nice if you didn't have to have it.
Well, it's my understanding, and maybe Brian could help me, that that connection is required, that we don't have flexibility on that.
For it to be considered a singular building, they have to connect. Otherwise, it's two buildings, it's a complex, and then it has a different series of
Unless-
requirements.
Yeah. I mean, I've, you know from the way I felt about 75, that I'm not a big fan of waivers, used maybe the way they were in that one. I feel like this is a case where the scale of what we're talking about, I would get rid of it. I mean, I just don't, I also agree, I feel like there's some around the back logic for why we have to do it. It doesn't help the project, it doesn't look better, it doesn't, I really don't get it. And so I would be, I would be willing to
Yeah.
waive that.
I agree if that's possible. That's what I'm just trying to determine if that's within the scope of our authority.
I'll say this, because I've said it
No, I was
before.
asking Mr. Cook.
No,
That would probably be a waiver, I would think, because it's a downtown business, would be a board of trustees waiver to consider that as two isolated buildings, more so than the planning board's level.
But we could,
We
in a
could
resolution,
You could recommend that.
We could recommend that.
But what I was going to, was something I wanted to actually address to Mr. Cook, because I remember us having this twice before in the past, where we had a garage and a house. If we connected the garage and the house with a roof, we were considered connecting the building to be a primary one building, which meant that our garage could no longer be 5 feet from the property line as an accessory structure because it was connected with a breezeway roof. No conditioned space. We had it in two places. One was the Friedland's house up on,
Appleton, is it the one, is that the?
no, it's up on
On Beachdale, rather?
Yeah, so that, we were lucky because our garage was far enough away. We did connect that one, but that's considered one structure now because it's connected. No conditioned space, no walls, just a roof. The place we wanted to do it was on Castle Hill Close for the, I forget their last name, but we had a garage and a house, we wanted to connect it, and we were told if we did so, we needed to get a variance for the garage to be so close to the property line.
Well, that was then and this is now.
Same code.
I know, but
Well, I think we can make a judgment as to what we think is appropriate, and it can play out as it plays out.
At the board.
If it goes, if there's a next step, so. Anybody else have any?
I hate to be, I would agree with
to provide
everything.
adult supervision.
Everybody's idea of getting rid of the breezeway sounds so good. There's a couple of problems. So you would be saying, let's grant a waiver to allow two buildings, not an apartment complex, because the front building only has 2 units in it, I believe under the code, an apartment complex has to have 3 or more. So now you've set a waiver precedent that 2 buildings can be located on one lot in the downtown and be primary buildings, which is an interesting thing, which we would be well advised to have some good legal counsel for before we did so. But obviously, the Board of Trustees can have good legal counsel, and they can tell them whether to do that or not. The other issue was, as 2 separate buildings, you know, I'm not one that loves all the zoning stuff, so I went and talked to the building inspector to try to get what, and Ed and Brian sat with us to kind of get this worked through. There was also an issue, and this was raised by Steve Tilley, but agreed to, I think, by the building inspector, that the back building would be required, even though it's on Elm, that it have commercial space fronting the street. That's the building inspector. And Patty will say he doesn't agree and all this stuff, but nevertheless, the guy that's the final arbiter on this stuff, I'm sorry to say, is the building inspector, not Patty, not me, not you guys. I mean, there's a point at which you can do a lot that's positive for the village, but there's certain elements of the code that that the building inspector speaks to, and if there's something somebody doesn't like about it, they go to the zoning board of appeals to see if they can get a different interpretation. That's the process for that. And I wouldn't mind at all just having this done, and Patty's got 2 buildings, there's no breezeway, all that stuff, but you're stepping into certain areas that are the domain of the building inspector that could have unintended consequences. That's what I would say.
I guess I would just counter in that I feel like it is the nature of a waiver that you are creating, that you're saying,
You're acknowledging that.
you're
it exists.
acknowledging that it's that you're creating this extra burden for you possibly going forward. We have done it before. There was another subdivision issue around something, I remember, that Ed was determined that we not do. I can't remember what it was, but we
We did it.
we did it, and I don't think it's come back to haunt us. And so I really respect what you're saying, but it seems to me that's the nature of a waiver, just like it would be the nature of the zoning. If they got a variance, would be, you're sort of saying, yeah, it's a special circumstance, and the burden would be on another applicant who was trying to get away with that. We'd maybe have a fight on our hands that we might otherwise not have.
Was any
But
part of this,
Huh?
were you done? I'm sorry.
No, I don't know, I don't know what the right thing to do is unless we want to have him. Would you suggest that he try to get a variance?
For the commercial use on, non-commercial use on Elm Street.
And 2 buildings on 1 lot, no.
Or is that outside the
complex.
purview,
Get
or-
rid of all that. The ZBA could clean all that out, I think. That's the power to do that. Even the special permit requirement would go to the Board of Trustees. We don't have Darius here tonight. You know what, I would love to just, if the project is better, I'm sort of exactly where you are, but worried. If the project's better, no breezeway, 2 buildings, the floor's gone, I guess, still, that's where we still thought the massing was too much. And then the waiver would be a decision of the Board of Trustees based on the planning board saying the most desirable project, it has these needed waivers from our review. And
Maybe you
we
could,
could draft something up, and if that's the consensus of the planning board, we could certainly draft something up and get that.
well, maybe you could get an opinion from Darius, and then if he thinks it's
Well, the
possible, we
attorney
could draft
didn't
something
have
up.
the waiver power. What I was worried about was precedence, and that I think we
Gotcha.
should get from Darius.
Was any part of this state definition of, so, I mean, Erica Krieger would render an opinion,
The
wouldn't
state is clear, if the building is constructed in a way that attaches with combustible materials, it's one structure. You have to break that with a firewall or something else for it not to be. So if we have, as the Village of Dobbs Ferry in the past has agreed, if this is connected, doesn't have to be conditioned space, it doesn't even have to be up above. Whatever.
Yeah, just not to cut you short, Barry, but we do have building inspectors that made an interpretation of this, that it needed to be 1 building with conditioned space. And that, I think, I can't go and now say, okay, we think they're wrong because we
Right,
talked
no, I
to them.
understand.
So we don't do that. So I think we do the waiver route, if that's your desire next month, we'll get a little bit of, see if we get a memo from Darius regarding any concerns he might have, and then if that makes the best project, but doesn't put us in a bad position for subsequent projects, then
Okay, I respect what you're saying, so if you want to wait for Darius to to look at it, then
Yeah.
maybe he can talk to the building inspector.
yeah.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I mean,
No.
we got a public hearing, it's open tonight, we haven't crafted a resolution.
Wait, no, it's not a public hearing.
That's not a public
I'm sorry, it's listed as here as a
It's closed.
continuation. Oh, just discussion, I get you, yes, so, yes, certainly we could get something drafted for next meeting. I think that's a consensus of the board, they don't like the breezeway deck, right?
There is.
Knock a floor off because there's always a question of massing and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But I guess to save the applicant and all of us pain, is there anything else that, like, any of us want to talk about in the current,
Well,
in the current scheme, so that,
I think if you take the parking analysis, we could have had an argument about that, but I don't think it's worth it. There's now only 5 units, 6 parking spaces in the commercial, and that, you have, well, the Board of Trustees has the power to interpret that meets the parking. Let's
I
put it
have,
that way.
I have one other that's gonna seem like a kind of a detail. Could you go back to your fixed views for a second? Then there's one that's kind of where you're standing on the street and looking south and west of your preset views. One issue that's been raised is that Steve Tilley raised the concern about the sightlines and traffic concerns of people coming up and over the hill. You had one of your fixed 3D views was a view
Oh.
from the model. One of your preset views, not one of the ones you just created, one of the ones in your PowerPoint.
Is it coming up or down?
No, it's in your PowerPoint. It was one of your set views in your PowerPoint, not from the model. Go to your back to your PowerPoint. Yeah, do the next one. Keep going.
There's only 3.
There's one that,
2.
well, maybe it's that one. Okay, I thought there was one, there was a fixed view taken. What I was gonna say was, it seemed to me that you could not, and I'm raising this because I don't know on whose dime it would be, but it seemed to me that that you could do some aggressive striping on the south side of the street to make it clear that because I know that there's parking allowed there, but then there's some space between that last parking space. Right, there's between huh?
Right here.
No, further up. Just as you're crossing the aqueduct, there's a zone where there's no parking, where it seemed to me you could do some aggressive yellow striping or something like that.
Nothing to do with the project.
No, it has to do with, because there was a similar thing on Chestnut where, although there you only have parking on one side, where it made a big difference. They actually they moved the center line of the street over because they recognized how when you come up and over, I'm sorry, Walnut, when you come up and over the hill. And I know you can't do that here because you have parking on both sides of the street, but you could, I think you could stripe a portion of the road for the depth of the parking
Right.
along, before you.
Okay.
Well, that's good. What Rob's talking about is actually something we talked about many years ago. We were actually going further than paint, though. We were talking about even being able to do something with cobblestones in all of those crossings. So as you came down the street, you as a driver would recognize you're crossing something and it would call your attention. I still do not understand why we haven't done that.
Okay. Well, anyway, I didn't want to, sorry, I wasn't trying to go down a rabbit hole.
Always very interesting.
Yeah, there's one thing that I think could be, when we're talking about this, getting back to the connector thing and all that. What your wording could be is the minimum connection necessary to obviate this being determined to be 2 buildings. And it's possible that that could be nothing more than this roof connecting over to the existing building, so that you walk under that roof. If that roof all connects, I still believe, New York State says that is a connection that makes it one structure. So you're only 5 feet between them. I think I think your wording wouldn't say it is this or it is that, it's the minimum. And then it could be the building inspector looking into it. If they want to talk with Erica and confirm things, they have the ability to do that. And that could obviate the whole thing on the second floor. It could make it a much simpler thing.
Yeah.
It's better
Well,
than nothing.
Wait,
It's better than nothing because then, like I said, if we don't want to set a precedent.
Mhm.
So we have done a connection of sorts and that's the waiver that
Yeah.
it doesn't.
If you're gonna talk to the attorney, could you try that on him and see if that,
Yeah. I think you still need a waiver, but I think we're getting around the precedent. I will
Okay.
definitely talk to him.
okay, all right. See you later. The next item on our agenda tonight is continuation of a public hearing for site plan approval for proposed multifamily residential building with garage and parking area on property located at 255 Broadway. This is a public hearing, so I would move that we open the public hearing. Is there a second? All in favor?
Christine Griffin, the architect, and we're, tonight, I'd like to show you our response to the comments from Hahn Engineering and Lucille Lawrence. I want to just take you through our latest landscaping plans and site plan. These plans actually were just updated since we received them yesterday from Lucille Lawrence and 2 days ago from Hahn Engineering, but I still want to take you through it just to let you know
Please.
that we are making the effort to make sure that we respond to their comments. I just have to get selected.
Just for the audience, if that wasn't all clear, the board has received and it's been passed on to the applicant comments from the village engineer and from the village's landscape architect, very detailed comments in both cases about suggestions for this project, which we appreciate them making. So.
This one?
Oh, sorry. I didn't look through my printed material. Here, it's in your. You can use it. George, I have a question, maybe you can answer the, see, maximum buildings lot coverage, I don't know if that's a, it says 30%, but the proposed is 31.7%. Is that a Brian question? On the cover of, I'll ask when they start.
I thought I saw that they received a number of variances. Maybe that was one of the ones you received.
Okay.
He had some setback, side yard setback issues, I know.
I thought the plan was pretty good.
Yeah, it is cool. It's funny because there's a tiny bit of lawn in front of Sussex Hall, and the kids use it for recreation.
installation space all the time. It's just like it's only this big, and they're like throwing a ball back up and stuff.
Kids adopt.
Yeah. Exactly. That's all the space they have. Yeah, this is good. But I think that the public wants to see what she's doing, right? They don't have this, so.
Okay.
Okay, we have been to the zoning board, received our variances for the ARB, and moved that last month, but we haven't, we still have that secret process that was open to the send out the notices to interested parties, and we did not receive any responses to our office or to the building department. So right now, we're actually trying to respond to those comments from consultants. We are going to show you tonight just a more detailed landscaping plan, and that's because we have a lot of comments related to those plans, and also to from Han Engineering, there are comments about recreational space. I wanted to show the board that we have responded to most of the C1's comments, which is we increased the space for the two gardens in front and back, and we reduced the plant beds so that we have more usable space for the residents. And we also, we weren't able to put color on this, but I just want to remind the board that we always have roof decks, and that's part of the common recreational space that we're providing for the 10 units. That's at the top level, and there'll be, you come up on an elevator and stair, and there's going to be different sitting areas, dining areas, and space for use by all the tenants, which is a little over 2,000 square feet. I also wanted to just go back and review, we had some comments from Han Engineering about our views from the aqueduct, and we have an elevation showing the plants that we're putting here. We did not receive any comments from the CO1s about the plant bed along the aqueduct, and we increased the height of those plants, and we also showing before and after, this time with a simulation of the types of evergreens and variety of shrubs and trees that we plan to put along the property line. And this is really not so much to just, this is really to kind of create a natural looking transition from the building to the aqueduct, so that it feels very park-like. Going back to the landscaping plan, we have actually, in most respects, responded to all the comments related to the type of plant species, the shapes of the gardens. The one area where we will need some discussion is really the trees along the property line. We took a good look at those trees, and actually one thing about them, they're not in very good shape, and I really want to make sure the board knows that this driveway is going right back where it is now. We're not planning to change the grade. So even though Han Engineering asked us for a letter from the neighbor to say that in the event there's any adverse effect on those trees, we will replant them. and we would also patch the wall if necessary. It doesn't seem to be any good reason why this might happen, since the grade is actually over and the wall on the property line. The wall that's there is actually belongs to the neighbor's property.
But then you shouldn't have any problem with the bond.
Well, I just want to make sure that we discussed it, that's all.
Understand.
And we actually, we have a landscaper designer with us tonight, and I just would like her to get up to discuss a little bit about how she approached these garden areas just to make sure you know how we took into account to seal.
I think it would, yeah, I think it would be helpful for you or for the landscape person to tell us what you're not doing that our consultant recommended.
Yes. Would you like to get up? This is Ann Atchison. And she has a lot of experience, especially with the sustainable type of gardens. I appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Ann Atchison, Landscape Design. If anyone wants to write my name down properly, if they take notes, this is my card.
Thank you.
So let's go back to, how do we do that? Go back to okay, so in the first iteration, so just to take one step back, there's a lot of requirements on this small spaces landscape, including only using native plants and whatnot. So Lucille Munz gave us a pretty detailed series of suggestions, mostly revolving around the use of some of the common space for recreation. And I did do a reply to that, which Christina has copies of.
Actually, I'd like to have it, even though I wasn't able to see it.
So on this revised plan, we've done a couple of things. She requested that we do a plant schedule, which was inadvertently left off on the first one, so it's there that tells the numbers of plants and so on. And we haven't really changed the idea of the screening from the aqueduct. And as Christine said, the idea there is a mixed screening plan. So it's not a wall of evergreens, but it has strategically placed evergreens that have different foliage and different sizes and shapes, mixed in with a couple of shade trees and some smaller ornamental trees and some shrubs. And what that provides is, as Christina said, a more naturalistic transition between a lawn and the aqueduct. It also will screen walkers along the aqueduct, particularly coming south, where you might, see the outdoor parking or whatnot. I understand that it was requested that that be fully screened. And so in the first iteration of this plan, the wall, so we've created a flat platform behind the building that's at elevation 85. So it's kind of a compromise between the front of the building and the aqueduct, which is like at 80. So it's not at 85. Where that wall ends is the natural 85, and this is 85. So the wall gets a little taller as it goes towards the neighbor. So we've added this new wall, created this platform, and in the original iteration, that wall curved around to allow there to be 2 levels of screening. So that not only would you have the 8-foot tall stuff that was at grade 80, but you'd also have additional screening that started 5 feet higher. And the rationale for that is it's a small space and you can't really fit huge things in there. And but what Lucille Munz said was, in order to maximize the use of the recreational space, which will be this platform of lawn, we should consider redesigning where the wall was. And so you see that in the redesign, now the wall, instead of curving that way, it just follows the property line at an angle, but then I still have a blue spruce here on the upper level, as well as evergreens down there. So I still did add something in that corner, because that's the crucial corner, because when you're walking the other way in the aqueduct, it's behind you. But when you're walking south, you'd be looking at it.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How high is the walls, 4 feet or something like that, or?
From nothing to 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's, the grassy part is lower.
No, this is 85, this platform.
Uh-huh.
And then this is like 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86.
No, I mean the light green area.
This is above
Oh, okay.
the aqueduct. So the
Oh, that's
aqueduct is
interesting.
going uphill.
Right, no, I was just, because the land now sort of dips down before it gets to the aqueduct, I just wondered if it was gonna be lower than the,
No,
Okay.
it's gonna be, building.
okay, all right.
Platform,
Gotcha,
wall,
okay.
natural grade,
Uh-huh.
aqueduct, and the aqueduct. So everywhere along the property, we meet the existing grade, because
Gotcha.
the walls are meet the aqueduct.
Yeah, okay.
So we're not trying to separate, regrade the property,
Right.
except to do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
What, quick question, sorry. The height,
Sure.
you mentioned the blue spruce, or two of them. What's the height of those? In the-
We're specifying fat Albert blue spruce, because we don't want there to be a hugely tall, 100-foot tall tree,
So what is
50
that?
years from now, so they're starting out at 5 to 6 feet. It's a fat, like it says, fat Albert. It's a really nice fat.
What's the ultimate height?
caramel Spruce, pardon me?
The ultimate height of those?
The ultimate height is it probably grows about 6 inches a year to, maybe 40 or something,
Okay,
30.
40.
Depends on where it's grown, obviously. But it's not the native, it's not the species, Picea pungens is the species. That's Colorado blue spruce, the big, gigantic, tall ones. So this is more like what you would see in a smaller space, that it's still got the eye-popping color, and it'll stop your eye, but it won't outgrow the space, and it won't block the views of the residents of whatever they want to see that's, beyond the trees. So the mixed border, and Lucille Munn suggested we add a few more ornamental trees / shade trees. So these are the evergreens, blue spruce. We added a red maple. We have some smaller evergreens here tucked into the corners. We have some shad trees, some fothergilla. We have the black tupelo, which originally was in the front. We moved it to the back, which is a really beautiful native tree, sort of medium size. And then we put in a stepping stone path through this planted border to get to the aqueduct, which is another thing she suggested, was that the residents will benefit from being able to access the aqueduct. And I speak a little bit about that in my comments. And so and then the other thing that she wanted was in the original plan, we sort of had the whole thing surrounded by gardens. So there was a planting bed next to the walls and whatnot. And so she thought that that was an issue of both maintenance and not, providing them with the most space they could get. And so we took away a lot of those planting beds. So now we just have lawn coming up to the walls. And then you can see the other thing that we did in that space is to add sort of Adirondack or Wave Hill-like chairs that can move around the space, so that rather than putting in benches or something like that, people can just take them to the shade or the sun or wherever they want. And then there's another element of this which she didn't mention in her review, which is the side yard. And so the side yard is on the south side of the building is fairly narrow. But what we've done is we've created a gravel path with natural stone steps to follow the grade every so often as it goes up. And it's planted on both sides with a mosaic of ground covers that won't have to be mowed or weeded or anything like that, all native. And what that does is it connects the backyard to the front yard. So it creates the ability to run around like a banshee if you want to and play tag or hide and seek, or, people can move their chairs into the side yard if they want a moment of peace and quiet or something like that. So I think that's really important for the recreational aspect of the use of the property as well, as there's a lot of room to sit, have a picnic, read, play your game, but also run around, and you can easily get onto the aqueduct and ride your bike or go to the village or wherever you want. So for the back, I think I don't believe there's anything that we haven't done that she requested for that.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at this diagram, I guess it doesn't look like yours. So she's mentioned a rectilinear backyard, she's mentioned all these tree locations.
Right, so we did add.
But that's not updated on this yet. This is not the updated. This is her comments on the
Those are comments
previous.
on the previous
Yeah,
design.
so this does not look like that.
No, that's the change.
So remember, I said the wall was curved in the beginning,
Right.
so the thing she drew on had a curved wall, see that curved wall?
Yeah,
Okay, so that curved wall which used to go like this, now goes like that.
yeah, but she didn't suggest that it do that.
Yes, she did in words.
Okay.
So can somewhere consider something or other in the wall. Let's see.
Yeah, no, consideration might be given to
Yeah.
make the wall rectilinear as provided.
Okay, so if you look at my comments, I started with the front yard actually, but, I guess I started with the backyard. So I've touched on the rear yard, the side yard. Again, I think she made some comments about this garden, the garden look, is lovely, but doesn't contribute to erosion control and stuff like that. And so I just wanted to emphasize that in this whole entire side yard where we're planting a mosaic of 4 different ground covers, we've designed that very deliberately to be some guys that grow low and spread like crazy, and some carrots is like grass-like, which will shade out weeds. And so it's a mixture of 4 different ground covers, all of which are, low. They're not more than like 10 inches tall, any of them. Some of them flower, but they all behave well together. So they will intermix. They'll create a mosaic that within 1 or 2 seasons, in my experience with this, will be able to outcompete any weed seed that might have the unluckiness to land there. So, and especially in spring, all of these are either evergreen or they leaf out very early in spring. And in our climate, the spring weeds are the weeds that are usually a problem for our gardens, not later. So it's important to pay attention to spring. And then the other thing I put in there is that in this little space right here, so if you see, Lucille Muntz suggested we plant a tree here. We've added a tree here, and we have always had this tree, because, again, in the original plan, we had a planting bed along here, and Lucille said this space was too narrow to just kind of squinch people, and if it's a common space, you don't want to really do that. So my feeling was that to add another tree here was just, not really necessary, that it would be better, the recreation part especially, and the use would be better served to allow this to just be, a continuous path. But this space could be used or be amenable to the eventual installation of a playset. It would have to be custom designed because most playsets that you see on the internet have a big swing sticking out on one side, and that you would be able to accommodate that. But I showed a picture here of one I found on the internet that's custom designed to be long and linear. So you can still have a climbing ladder, you can still have a swing, you can still have one of those balancing rope ladders, you can still have a fort, you can still have a climbing pole, fireman's pole, you can still have a little rock climbing thing. You just have to put it all together in a long line instead of side by side. So that could also be an amenity that might be used for recreation. And then moving to the front yard, her suggestion was, again, to make the space more rectilinear and courtyard-like. She wanted the path to be straightened and not curvy. And I will say that one of the reasons that curved path, besides the fact that curves are often used to offset the angles of a modern building, but aside from that, we wanted to accommodate planting in this space next to the walkway. And the driveway is fixed because it's going where the old driveway was. So we kind of created a little bit of a bigger space by curving the walk, but we took that away. So we've made the walk straight. We have decreased the size of this planting bed, so it's really only a 2-layered instead of 3 or 4-layered space. And we have, we still have the sneak path that goes around the house. We've added a couple of, so now we have 3 red maples here. 1, 2, 3. We have an American dogwood and an American dogwood. So we've more or less added exactly the number of trees she asked for, but not exactly in the locations. So, and then we put a hedge. You can't really see it, but we put a hedge along the outside that wraps around to here. And that hedge is going to be made of 9-bark, which is a native shrub that has beautiful coppery, goldy leaves. It leaves out very early in spring. So it's a presence even now, even with the kind of spring we've been having, it has leaves. And it turns a beautiful fall color. And it's called 9-bark because it's got 9 different colors of peeling bark that give it winter interest. And it grows, the cultivar that I picked grows about 5 feet high. So it won't have to be managed or trimmed or, you know, very often. So, and the other thing she asked for was a management plan. I'll get to that in a second. So really, and then there was a comment about the planting next to the building, that it doesn't protect the building in winter enough. And I didn't really change that. It's 9-bark. It's the same as the hedge, with 2 shad trees on either side. But I think the fact that we have a hedge that's basically as tall as me, and then on the inside of that we have blue spruce and, again, evergreens and shrubs, another layer, that the winter screening, or however you want to refer to it, takes place near the street and is not necessarily near the house. There's an overhang also of a balcony that overhangs that space.
Right.
So you couldn't plant anything very tall or extensive there anyway. The 2 shad trees are on the outside of that overhang.
There's no, excuse me, along that wall, which you would see from the aqueduct, right, where the chairs are up against, before there was a planting bed, so that was removed, I guess, to make the lawn wider.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity to have some kind of vine or something very close to the wall to shield the wall?
Well, you won't see the wall. I mean, the wall goes from 0 to, I don't know, 4.5 or something like that.
Do you mean the other wall? You
No, I mean-
this wall?
This wall?
I mean the wall.
Yeah, that wall, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, this wall.
But even for the,
Yeah. I mean, well, that's, again, it's a matter of the competing wants and needs of all the different voices in this. But so originally, there was a planting bed along that wall that was going to have ornamental grasses in it, just to soften it. And we could put that back if,
well, is there an opportunity for something very linear, very planar, that doesn't take up any lawn space but covers the wall?
yeah, you could put something there. I mean, you still would have to have a planting bed though.
I have a,
It could be, a foot wide, and it could, but, then
Like a vine or something.
it could be something like climbing, then you have to find a native climber. And, it's extremely difficult to find a nice native climber, I'm just gonna tell you right now. So, that's why I had picked ornamental grass. It also doesn't take up much space, but whatever.
a question. You said there's going to be a 5-foot tall hedge between the street or the sidewalk there and the property. Well, I believe it's against village code to put any kind of fence in the front yard. Why would a hedge be different?
You can have a hedge.
Hedge is different, I think, but,
So you can block a view with a hedge, but you can't do with a fence, okay?
but they should be kept a bit. You have cars looking, your views coming out and stuff like this, you have to consider. So typically, we'd like them to be 3.5 feet, something like that.
Right,
Not
and
get
the
as
hedge
tall,
doesn't start.
not get as tall as what you're saying is.
Well, what I was trying to say is, it won't start out as 5 feet, but it doesn't overgrow 5 feet. So we're not planting something that you're gonna have to fight every single year to cut it back. It's something that naturally stays pretty modest and can be very easily pruned since it's deciduous in the fall. So you can shape it however you want.
So you can cut it down to 3 feet if it becomes a
You can
a
cut it
sightline
down to
issue?
18 inches every 2-3 years if you want to. So and it's native, so it's like privet in that sense, but it's native. So in the front, the only thing that I think that, leaving aside the question of the trees the neighbor's trees for a second, the only thing that I think is not something that I feel comfortable doing is that she requested that the red maples, of which there are 3, the shade trees, be installed as 4.5-inch caliber trees. And her rationale was that it will mitigate the height of the building. And really, as an arborist, I have to say that the rule that you follow and really should be adhered to if you are interested in sustainability is that you plant the smallest tree that the design can accommodate without looking wrong. Because a lot of research has shown that if you plant, say, a 2.5-inch caliber maple and a 5-inch caliber maple side by side, by the time 3 years have passed, the 2.5 one is actually taller than the bigger one because you've planted this root ball that was cut from a big root ball in a big tree. And so it has to spend at least 3 years, if not more, reconstituting its root zone at the expense of growing as much as it could if you installed it smaller. So you'll see in my written comments that I've specified 3-inch caliber red maples, which will start out at about 16 feet tall, which I think is a reasonable height. It's more than 1 story, certainly. And that height will be more arboriculturally acceptable, plus it will be in proportion to the other plants that are being planted, and the whole thing will then grow together and look better. So that's the only thing in the front that I don't think was changed.
Good.
And,
Thank
you
you.
want me to talk about these trees?
I think we
One of
should,
the-
this is a public hearing, right?
Well, I had a question.
Yes.
I think that Christina talked about this earlier. I think I either didn't understand or missed it, but Lucille asked for a couple of sections, cross sections through the
Yeah.
north-south through the property. I just wondered if you'd gotten to that yet, or she hasn't?
We actually have a cross-section, we always had a cross-section through the site, and it's like this. is not-
No, north and south. Didn't she ask for a couple north and south, or was it
I thought it was east-west.
was it east-west?
We actually do have a section through on the site
Steve.
plan, and we're gonna transfer it to the landscaping plan, so she can review it. She did not
That's
receive that
north-south,
section.
right? Am I-
That's across the aqueduct.
Here's the cross.
Yeah, oh, yeah, okay, sorry.
Okay.
I was looking at it wrong.
So then, the beginning of her, the beginning of what she wrote had to do with the trees that are on the neighboring property. And, she felt fairly certain, at least from what she wrote, that those trees would be adversely impacted by construction. There was a misunderstanding that was probably created by the drawing itself, that about the grade between.
No, actually, I am right. She says a cross-section between the properties. Is that right? Requested, is that across the properties or between?
Yeah, so she's looking for that as well.
We can provide that.
I was just curious, I mean, because I didn't quite understand what, how those trees fit into whether they're a lot higher or whatever. I mean, I don't think it's super important, but I just was curious.
Can I give them these pictures of the trees?
Yes, please.
Is it reasonable to assume that the roots of those neighboring trees go under the driveway and that as you have construction vehicles going over it, they would be adversely impacted?
I'll show you, I took pictures. So, I went to the site yesterday and took pictures, if you can have these out, of the trees in question and let's see. So, the best way to look at this is go to page go to page 3. Start with page 3. And you see that this, so this, what you're looking at is that little castle-looking like garage, if you look on the plan, on the, how do you think any of you have a site plan or on, you see that's the little existing wall that's next to the backyard, that's their garage, and then you see the neighboring existing wall, and it has a fence on top of it, and then there's another piece of railroad tie wall, and there's the tree with the sign in it, and then there's a bunch of little trees along that space. All of those are Norway maples.
Oh,
And-
yeah, this is helpful, thank you. This is what I was sort of looking at.
And then on to the
understand.
left of that picture, you just see the echo of a little tree. So if you go to the page 4, you now see, we're now in the space between the evergreens that are near the street and these deciduous trees, which are farther down with an empty space next to them. And you see that there's a tree that has forsythia at the base of it. That tree's a mulberry tree. And it has a few broken branches, but it's not in bad condition. And so my conclusion about this space is that it's been neglected, you know, it was sort of no man's land. And that's the way that invasives like mulberries and Norway maples ended up getting there and growing. So none of them are desirable trees, none of them are in particularly good condition, and none of them look to me like they would be, their root zone would be impacted because they've got a huge root zone on the side of the property where they already exist. So then if you look at, then look at page 5. Okay, so now I'm standing like on the sidewalk and I'm looking all along that property line. And you see the forsythia, you see the edge of these evergreens, which we'll talk about in a minute, on the right-hand side. You see the mulberry tree next to the forsythia, and then you see these Norway maples sort of in the distance. And then there's another little blob of evergreens that are they look like Japanese holly to me, that are on the neighbor's property, and they're, you know, innocuous. So then, if you looked at page 3, you'd see those little Japanese hollies or whatever they turn out to be growing, like on the neighbor's side of their existing wall fence and the orange fence. So then next to the street, there is a group of, which you can see in her picture, there's a group of tightly spaced evergreens that were along the driveway. And remember that the new driveway is going to be in the exact same location and the exact same grade as the old driveway was. So the space is not going to be affected by changes in grades or walls or anything. And so the first page shows, and I've identified these evergreens as Leland cypress, which were never a good choice for a screening border because they were far too exuberant. They're the fastest growing evergreen. But you see on my pictures, I've taken a picture from the neighbor's side, and you can see that there's a space about 5 feet wide in which these trees are growing, and they have a parking space abutting them on the neighbor's side, and on the 255 side, there will be a curb and a driveway in the exact location. So whatever root zone they have now is probably sufficient, and then the page 2 shows you what they look like from the other side, and they do have some winter damage, but they're only marginally hardy in our climate anyway, so it's not surprising that they get some browning, but they're perfectly healthy. You can see that, I'm sure they were planted as required screening for the parking space to the residential house.
Good, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Christina? Christina? That was good. I don't know if you have much more. This is a public hearing, and I would like to give opportunity for the public to speak.
I just want to mention one more thing, that now the recreational space, front and back yards are about 70% of the lot, And then we have our roof decks, which provides another 2,000 square feet, which is about 30% more of the lot. And I think what we wanted to do, one of the things we're concerned about is the memo that said that we're not providing recreational space. And we feel that we are, so we wanted to address that. And actually, we have Neil Alexander tonight who wanted to talk about that. He's the attorney.
Okay, thank you.
So, good evening. My name is Neil Alexander. I'm a partner at the law firm of Cuddy and Fader. We wanted to talk a little bit about the rec fees and the way the condition is framed, and the statements have been made about that, and just wanted to back up a couple of steps. I know you all are probably familiar with how in 2011 your code was amended to allow rec fees on a site plan for a residential multifamily situation. And it parallels the state law, 7-725A, with regard to the findings you all need to make the recreation study that your board actually did, excuse me, the village board did in 2010. So before we even go there, our premise is this, that there's no need for recreation fees in this situation. And the premise is based upon this. Before you even get to looking at our site and what we're able to provide on site, the property backs up to the aqueduct. The property is within 0.2 of a mile of Memorial Park and within 0.5 of a mile from both Waterfront Park and Gould Park. Those are 3 of your 4 most major recreational facilities in your community, and we're walk and bikeable. And you can look at any, smart cities plan concept. We basically are providing you your access to recreational facilities off-site within a reasonable distance, both 0.2 immediately on our property and 0.5 to various different sizes, whether it's the pool or any other kind of facility you want. I think Ann just did a great job of talking about the passive that's on site. For between connecting the front and the backyard, where there's room to play tag or hide and seek, you have an opportunity to reflect with the chairs, you have the roof decks and the views associated with that. So our premise is basically that we don't need to go the next step. It's perfectly reasonable for you to make a finding that there's on-site and in the vicinity recreational fees available. And I think what's also important to note, just as you are thinking about that, is that your rec fees provision, the fee was set last in 2006. You did your rec study in 2010, and then in 2011, the code gave the authority. Your rec fee reflects subdivision lots, not multifamily dwellings. And in fact, your recreation study itself talks about, and it makes the presumption that there's 2.55 people in every lot and home. You're not going to have, you may have 2.55 people in a 4,000 or 3,000 square foot home, new construction subdivision. That's why it's sort of anachronistic. It's still looking back at when the presumption was under 277 of the town law or subdivision regs, you're allowed to ask for rec fees. It's not been clarified, and it gets out of weight here because it becomes 10,000 times 10 dwelling units, which becomes $100,000, which is a big notional here when you have on-site amenities, you have the aqueduct right behind, you have 2 other parks nearby, and more importantly, a 700 or 800 square foot studio does not have 2.55 people. And we're talking about a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. We may have 10 to 12 people on our site. Under 2.55 times 10, that's assuming 26 people. We're not there. So we believe just first and foremost, you don't even need to get to the math calculation on the backside because you have the recreational facility on site and in the vicinity to fulfill the demand of these 10 to 12 new people. So that's our basic premise. And I mean, you know the case law stemming from Bayswater all the way up and the findings that are required upon you that it can't, the presumption's on you, it's not on us. And I'll gladly go over that if you want me to, it's at the appropriate time.
At the appropriate time.
Okay.
I think, as you can see, our attorney is not here tonight.
Yes.
To discuss this with you, and I just soon defer it, or you can discuss it with him off.
Sure, I mean, just to jump ahead before the public, we still would love you to do your neg deck tonight, because that doesn't have anything to do with site plan approval, as far as being able to make a finding that there's no environmental impact. So we'd still really like you to do, if you're not inclined to do an approval with regard to the site plan with the appropriate conditions, we really would like you to do your secret neg deck tonight, though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard on this application?
You gonna open the public hearing? Do we have to open it, or? is it already
We
open?
opened it.
Okay.
We opened it. Yes. I think we opened it.
Mike Merrill, 32 Walnut Street. You know, the roof deck will be looking over my backyard. There was, I've still been waiting to see some of the views. We haven't seen the north-south views of the proposed building.
I have them here.
Can we see the mock-up?
Trying to get this going.
Again, talking to some of the issues, we did have a ZBA approval, subject to the understanding that the planning board would still be viewing the issues that were allowed by the ZBA in the planning board's own context, not waiving them wholesale, so keep that in mind. This is a massive project. If we look at the scale of the building compared to the size of the lot, I've mentioned this before, but we're talking about something 7 times the size of my house on a lot that's 1.5 times the size. So we're putting 10 units where there used to be a one family. I don't know how you argue that you've still got the same sort of open space left here. But more importantly to the village, I wanted to see what the view from, say, the trail coming from the keeper's house is, the proposed view.
I'm gonna have to ask you to look at the computer. I'm afraid I just can't get it up on the screen. But these are the views that we showed at the planning board meetings in the past, and we had 3 ARB meetings, they were publicly noticed, so we have been presenting these. This is a view.
Do you have the schematic from the, not stepped back from behind the,
This is it.
This is from the aqueduct, looking straight on. This is from the aqueduct, a little south of the building. And then we do have the north and south elevations here.
I think, Christina, maybe you should have the mic if you're gonna,
I'm sorry.
it's hard to have a private conversation, Mr.
Yeah, I
Mayor.
think since we can't all see what you're talking about, it's not worth even discussing, so.
Yeah, we know the elevations that we showed at the ARB,
Right.
that we have the north and south elevation, and we also have, this is the colored view, this is the black and white of the south elevation, and then we also have before and afters of all going over around the building. We have 3 from the aqueduct. This is before and after. This is the property just south, looking towards I guess, northeast at the building.
do you have this one?
We can't see these things. I mean, it doesn't do much good to,
Everybody knows this one. This is straight off the trail. If you walk by the keeper's house, this is what you see,
It's looking from the,
right? We see the existing
It just
house
went
next
off.
door, and we see the big apartment building in between, and right now we see a big,
it went off.
open space in
It's,
between, right?
So you're at the Keeper's House looking at the big.
On the trail,
Right.
coming across the
Right.
street,
Right.
Right.
right?
On the
Everybody
street,
knows the
yeah,
view, right?
This view is closer to the site than the.
My-
than-
My question is really, how much of that space does it fill up? How much of this building do we see broadside when we're coming down the trail? For one, I know it's taller than the building next to it. And it's a lot longer than the building next to it.
It's not taller than the huge apartment building.
Yeah, it's
No, but that's,
small.
that's a second view. I'm just trying to get this one first, because we haven't seen that one yet.
It's gonna be hard to do in a public hearing. I don't know
Yeah.
if we can, I mean, we may have to carry the public hearing over if we can't have the screen show the things that we're trying to look at or discuss. But this is just not workable like this. So I think if you have comments and stuff, we can get them to respond, but we may have to just hold the public hearing for
Right.
next month
Yeah.
and deal with it when we can respond.
Right.
But this is, you have people here, back here, oh, maybe we'll get somewhere, sorry.
The other one that everybody knows is driving south on Route 9. And contrary to how it looks from the Keeper's House, when you drive south on Route 9, you really don't notice that big apartment building until you're right next to it, because it's set back, hidden by all of the brush. But you do see the house next door.
I think you got it, Christina. Oop, no. Yeah. Oop.
Is it a physical connection thing?
I think it's, just pull it over.
Oh, that it's actually
It's
on a
off
different
this
view?
side.
We have a long agenda tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to get hung up on this. Yeah.
But these are things that, you know, nobody can see until somebody puts it up.
Well,
I
So she-
have
but
a
she'll-
big
she'll-
idea what
noted,
space
she'll
it's
provide
going to
a
fill, but
that's
She'll
not
need
going to
some-
happen tonight.
Yeah, she'll need some time to prepare that.
I just want to say something. We have been showing these for so many meetings, and I have several views going all around the building before and after. I can't get them up tonight, but I've been showing this at every single meeting. I showed them at 3 ARB meetings, and now this is the third, I think, third meeting we went to ZBA. I've had these views, and I welcome you to come and see this. I'm afraid, it's a shame I just can't get it up here, but I have been showing these, and we've had public hearings, we've had notices for a long time now. So I don't know which view, I am missing. I'm very happy to add another view. And I just want to remind everyone that, the code allows us to do 15 units. We did 10 units. We are not trying to overdevelop this. The building to the south has 8 units, the building to the north has 59 units.
No, we're aware of all that.
And we have discussed these items, these features of the project several times.
So,
I would also point out that the AHRB was not a public hearing, it was pre-submission, so there really wasn't the same opportunity to,
There were notices sent out for the ARBs.
right, but there wasn't the same opportunity to ask the same questions, and we still have not gotten those side views that everybody is going to see, and that's going to be the face of the building to the village.
it's clear.
Nobody's gonna stand across the street and just look at it from there, but everybody's gonna see it driving up and down Broadway and walking the
I
trail.
We
understand.
have the side views.
But she is showing oblique views of it.
Yeah, okay. So,
Would it be useful to put those on the village website or something, or?
If they're available, yes.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So then, okay.
I can send you the,
I can rebound you, I'd be happy to.
thank you, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this tonight? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Kevin Hartnett. I live at 57 Seneca Street. I've been before you previously discussing the development of 75 Main. I own some properties on both Main and Palisade. I I guess the question I first start off with is, the proposal is for how many studio, one bedroom and two bedroom? Some, tell me what that is?
5 two-bedroom,
5 two bedroom,
4 one-bedroom, and 1 studio.
okay. All right, thank you. So, I'll come back to that point in a moment. I guess I would ask, I'm just very concerned about the impact to the neighborhood, not only on Broadway, but also on Main and in that general area, as a result of this development and the other developments that are currently either have been approved or are pending approval. There are probably, counting this development, 60 new residential units that are about to be approved in a very tight geography. And I wonder when traffic studies are they done on a runoff basis, looking at what's there today, without consideration for what might be already in process as well? Because it may yield a totally different answer. Because walking up and down Main Street, my estimate, and I think I sent the board, the planning board here a note about this, I estimate that between Livingston Avenue and Cedar Street, there's about 170 rental units currently today, with 25 proposed or so at 75 Main. The 9, I think, that are at 78 Main, the 16 at 66 Main, and now this 10, that's adding 60 new units. It's a 33% increase. Arguably, a very significant impact on that area. And I just wonder, when we look at the traffic, are we looking at it with the impact of all those new units as part of that? At the last Board of Trustees meeting, someone made the comment that it's kind of like the parking is kind of like whack-a-mole. You hit it here and it just pops up over here. I lived at 269 Broadway when it was formerly known as Roslyn Gardens, so I know what the parking's like there. Parking today is nothing like it was when I lived there. Situation is much different, so I just ask that that be considered. Secondly, it's almost, I didn't come tonight to speak about any recreation piece, but it's almost insulting when I hear that there are, I think you said 5 two-bedroom units and 3 one-bedroom,
4 one-bedroom.
4 one-bedroom,
One
and 1 studio. And that translates to 10 to 12 people. I mean, if I'm sitting in your position, that's kind of insulting for someone to come up and suggest that that's going to be what the population of the building is going to be. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Thank you. Yes. Almost missed your chance.
My name is Danny Dillon. I'm the owner of the project. And the gentleman was up there before, and he's talking about parking. He's taking up all the parking in the town himself for his businesses. So who is he to talk about parking? Thank you.
If I can address that.
No, let's,
I mean, those businesses have been,
no, I don't, can I say?
Don't
I don't
start.
think this
No,
is
I'm sorry. I
appropriate.
mean, those businesses, business has been there
This is not
for
a parking study.
60 years. Over the course, I bought another property on Main Street, and over the course of the past 2 years, I've probably added 15 parking spots that were previously not there. So, I mean, there are different rules that apply to businesses that have been there on Main Street for a long period of time, as opposed to a new development.
Thank you.
Thank you. You want to say something else?
I wanted.
We're gonna,
Microphone.
Yeah, we got that. Yeah, we'll go on the step. Just want to start talking about the neg deck and trajectory.
You care to address,
I wanted to talk about the neg deck as well as the trajectory.
could you clarify that statement about how many people are going to be on site? Because I didn't.
Well, there's 11 parking spaces.
No, when you were talking about the
Right,
rec,
and I had said about 10 to 12, that's my estimate.
10 to 12 persons?
Yes, that was my estimate. I mean, if you think it's low, that's a fair point, if you think it's low. The point being is this, and I think we can talk about, we can always come up with the anomalous situation. An 800-foot studio apartment is not gonna generate the same number of people.
There's one of those.
It's pretty, you know, clear. Your code unequivocally, because the timeline is really clear and it's on your disposition list, okay, we put it this way. 2006.
I don't want to get into this.
No, your fee structure was based upon.
I'd like to not repeat that. I was just asking if you wanted to clarify the number of people that you said, and you confirmed that's what you meant.
I'll let the architect clarify it.
Okay.
It's fine.
We have 10 units, and there's a couple in each unit, so it's, and maybe some children. I think there'll be 25 to 30 people. I want to clarify that. 'cause
Okay,
I know
thank you.
that as well.
If you wish to talk about the rec fee, speak to our attorney.
I definitely will. I want to talk about the neg deck tonight. That's really what I wanted to talk about.
We're not prepared to take any action on anything tonight. This was part of a process.
Okay, understood. I do this 2-3 nights a week as well. We're at a point where then, I don't want to wind up next month gandering as to what's open when the memos come out a week beforehand. Obviously, we had a technical issue that was collective that impeded some of the additional dialogue on the subject. Understood. Our understanding right now is that there really are no open items with regard to you needing more or additional information in order to come to a determination at the next meeting. And that's what we were hoping to see, is a neg deck at the next meeting, working through the appropriate conditions of the site plan approval. Obviously, it sounds like from the conversation and the way you directed me, it sounds like it would be an appropriate time to also start a dialogue with the village board, no different than other projects that had a reduction in rec fees. And we should take that conversation possibly there as well. But we still fundamentally, without prejudice to our belief, that there's enough on the facility. If there are other things we need to be thinking about, I think we'd just like to coalesce and collect them here to make sure we're at least communicating and understanding each other's positions. That's all.
Yeah. We hear what you're saying. This, as you know, this location is within the approval authority of this board, not the Board of Trustees.
No, but the fee schedule for rec fees
But the fee schedule
is
is
what
not-
I was getting at. That's what I was
No,
getting at.
I
I wasn't getting at with regard to anything other than the rec fee issue. I'm talking to them.
That'll have to be Darius.
Yeah, speak to our
I'm
attorney.
gladly, but this parking space is 2 spots next to mine in my building, in our building. So
Okay,
definitely will gladly speak to them.
buy him lunch, you never, good. Thank you.
Yep,
I
thank you.
have one more
Is it-
question for the architect. So it has to do with these balconies, and just a general, it's obviously, I suppose, between planning board and HRB, it seems to me, but the concern is really with the balconies, especially, we have 2 prominent village views on each side of you have the aqueduct and you have Broadway. And so my concern is what people put on these balconies and what they appear like, and if they're even appropriate for this climate. Can you speak to that?
When you have an outdoor space that's for each unit, it makes it more desirable. And something was the premise of the design that each person would have parking space and outdoor space. I know that there are regulations that some buildings put in place to make sure people are not allowed to use the balconies as storage and not to put bicycles there. So maybe we can have those kind of limitations. I think that we want to make sure that if these are rentals, that people will stay there as long as possible, and we know that an individual private outdoor space is important to that. So we had a lot of discussions with the ARB about it, and they also mentioned that we perhaps could have some kind of regulations in place where we should so that people are not allowed to put bicycles and store boxes on the balconies. I think that's the way we should address it.
What's the, are these open balconies? I mean, is there glass or metal or?
There's a screen on the front balcony, so you can't see into them, but on the back balconies, they're open. They're cable railing and glass.
And so on the front, including the sides of each balcony, it's enclosed by the building, or it's?
It's just the railing itself is gonna have a screening material, so you won't be able to see it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one quick note, they obviously mentioned the recreation fee is to be discussed with the attorney, but I should say that the past practice of all the projects that we reviewed has not counted front and rear yard, back, what are basically just front and rear yard stuff as recreation space. I mean, it's not, you can label them recreation space, you can open space, but we have not in the past ever counted them as. The rooftop thing is something we would look at, but not the others. What's the front yard and the backyard is, every project that's come before the board has not been considered as recreation space. We've had a project where a single-family house built half a basketball court. We counted that as recreation space.
I'm glad you said that, Dwight, because we've actually been trying to understand what recreational space is, and we've been hunting for it in the Dobbs-Surrey zoning code, and it's not a lot of information on it. It just says it's for passive and active activities. So what does that really mean? So I'm glad you're saying that. And we know that there should be some kind of common park-like space. I think it's important. But this building actually is, what we want to do is have an access to the aqueduct, and it's very close to the parkland, and then we have the common roof deck on top. So we'd really appreciate it if you could take a look at how we've designed that.
The roof deck. The other is just to us, or to what we've done in the past, is just the front yard and the backyard, not recreation. And I think that's just been 100% of the case with no exceptions. In a way, the yards that you're providing, the front and the back, are about the same as what a single-family house might have in terms of square footage and area, and you've got 10 units. It's just not something that the board is likely to consider. That's their decision, but I'm just saying what our past record has been.
When was the last time we waived a recreational fee?
We did waive a portion of the recreation fee for the apartment building at Rivertown Square, which we allowed them to make a contribution to the recreation fee fund. But they also provided a pool, clubhouse, a bunch of other things as part of the project. So waiving is maybe not the correct word. We just evaluated what they were providing on site and gave a credit toward what that fee would be, and then took about 50% as a fee.
Thanks.
That's the only one.
That's the only one I can ever remember.
And I think just for the discussion with the attorneys, the calculation of the recreation fee was based on the needs for continued upgrade and I think there was a calculation of some $6 million that were needed to be pumped into the facilities. Please don't get into arguing with me.
No,
Talk to the attorney about this, but the actual calculation was based on the burden on the village for upgrading or maintaining its recreation facilities. And that was the basis for determining the fee, not closeness of access.
And just so you know, other communities, they distinguish between apartments and single-family homes. They distinguish based upon number of bedrooms and things like that. That doesn't exist in your code at present. And that's where we're really saying we see the inequity existing, that a unit that we don't see as generating the same as a household, requiring the same fee, and that's where we see the inequity. So whether it's, I'm not going to go back and forth. I just that they wanted to at least give a derivation of where we see the distinguishing factors are. So
Thank you. The public hearing will be continued to our next meeting.
I second.
All in favor? Yes. All right. This is item 4 on our agenda. Continuation of pre-submission conference for subdivision application for 2 lots for proposed single-family residence on property located at 74 Maple in DeVoe. Is there someone here to speak on that? Ah, you're there. I'm sorry.
I'd like to know what.
The other, the rec fee, I mean, I think the 10-unit building, I mean, if somebody has a backyard, 2.5 people on the, their kids would be using the backyard mostly, and sometimes they go to the park. Whereas, you know, a 10-unit apartment building, they're gonna be using the parks, you know, I mean, I think it's a different, it's about maintaining.
It wasn't about people.
Figuring that paying the lawyer might be cheaper.
I think so. And they're right.
See Bridge of Spies.
Yeah.
That looked like something that would. That little piece of paper.
That surprised me.
My wife is like, usually it's my son that complains, there's no action. But he got his code stuff.
Not lesson.
Yeah.
You have to up in the hill, the kids aren't gonna be walking to the park and figure. This
If you have a backyard and you have one kid,
This is painful.
There is something.
I don't mean just this, I mean the whole meeting.
Maybe it should be for bedroom or something.
no, it's really, I mean, it's nothing to do with maintaining your recreation.
No, but that's to her point. If you have a building for the studio, that's not going to create.
Building with 3 bedrooms.
It's a building with, this building's with 3 bedrooms.
So
Because
the
one's gonna have
3-bedroom
to.
apartment pays
One
the
is.
same amount as the
Yeah.
studio.
That's why I'm curious to see how big the studio, I'm gonna see if some of the other, I'm gonna do a research and see how the other.
Yeah, that's what
We might make more money on them if we do it per bedroom. Well, not 10, but you make it per rate.
For a studio and 20,000 for
Oh my gosh.
No, but you can. Put that together,
Right, I do understand.
yeah. A house with 5 bedrooms pays $10,000. And an apartment house with 5 bedrooms with 5 studios pays $50,000. That doesn't make sense.
And plus, you know,
We should look at it.
if you're on a big piece of property, you're likely you're
Okay.
using the travel facilities less.
That's right.
Yeah.
Speak up, so you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dan Collins, Hudson Engineering, with the engineers for the project. As requested at our previous meeting, we prepared an overall lot comparison map, which provides an analysis for all existing and non-conforming lots around the neighborhood between Maple Street and DeVoe Street. We've also prepared a street view montage, which I'll get to in a minute, which stitches a few photographs together on the street to see how the proposed buildings in addition tie into the certain neighborhood. Since this information, I know we just submitted it, so I'm not sure if we actually have time to look at it or if we have it. But we wanted to go through it anyway since we have the opportunity tonight. So anyway, in comparing properties, we found that none of the lots actually in the surrounding neighborhood actually meet the requirements entirely for the NDR-1 extensive utility district. Of the 21 properties analyzed, so we can let the properties between Maple, East Orange, Storm, the 2 adjacent to Storm, DeVoe, and around the corner of DeVoe and Dixon Bend. Of the 21 properties analyzed, about 15 of the properties do not meet the minimum lot size requirement of 5,000 square feet. All the variances, all the big non-conformities are all listed in, are highlighted in blue. So 10 of the 15 properties that don't meet the 5,000 square feet actually are smaller than the 2 lots that we are proposing. In addition, none of the properties meet the front yard setback. 20 of the existing properties do not meet the side yard setback. 17 of the properties do not meet the lot depth requirement. 11 of the existing properties do not meet the lot width requirement. 13 of the properties exceed the maximum building coverage of 27%. And just to note, all the properties analyzed require at least 3 variances that exist now. So every single property that was analyzed within that block requires at least 3 variances each. Most of them require more. In addition to the zoning analysis, we've actually provided a breakdown percentage of 1, 2, and 3 family houses. Our client actually put this together. He analyzed 43 houses in the neighborhood, found that 52%, 22 houses, 52% of the houses were one family, 11 houses, which is in orange sections, 26% of the properties were 2 family, and the remaining 22% were 3 family homes. In regards to the street view plan, the architect was able to stipulate proposed residence and some pictures from the street taken along Monroe Street and 74 Maple. He was actually able to overlay the proposed residence on Monroe Street, which is in the middle, as well as the proposed expansion to the residence on 74 Maple Street as well. So as you can see, the proposed residence, along with the existing residence with the additions, are certainly not out of character of the neighborhood and don't stand out at all. In conclusion, actually, after completing the zoning analysis and the visual assessment of the neighborhood, although the proposed subdivision does require a number of variances, it is in no way out of character of the surrounding neighborhood, as all the properties require some sort of variance. Finally, I guess as a result of tonight's meeting, I'd like to hopefully receive positive recommendations to the zoning board.
Good.
Just a question, have you said that sort of the average is 3 variances, or 3.5, or across all the buildings?
I believe it's,
I think you said that most of them had 3, needed at least 3.
the smallest amount of variances was, I can't remember.
You want this plan?
Was 42 Maple Street. 42 Maple Street was the only one that has 3. The rest have 4 or more.
Okay.
4, 5, 6. Some of them require everything except for impervious area.
So the average might be 5, you're thinking?
Maybe 5, maybe 6. I think closer to 6.
So if you subtract 5 or 6 from the number of variances that you need for the subdivision?
But I don't,
I'm just curious.
I'm not sure that I know that the number of variances
Well, I'm just curious.
is the issue, because
Just
but
curious.
they're not all created equal.
Yeah.
There could be one variance
Right,
that's a killer, and 10 that don't, that are not, you never see, so.
Dwight, remember how this got to us. As I recall, the ZBA sent it to us for our guidance, basically. So what I'm trying to figure out, how far we need to go at this point, or whether we're at the point where we can say in some formal way to the ZBA that we think they should consider the variances required. Or do we need to go through a full approval and then send it back, which seems kind of backwards?
Yeah, I think we have a subdivision application. I'm just asking what we have technically received.
It's a 2-lot subdivision.
2-lot subdivision, and on that, you've identified all of the variances that would be required?
Yes.
So we may have sufficient to refer to the ZBA with the map showing what variances are requested for the subdivision to be approved, and the information provided in the form of a report as to the nature of the variances that are already in the neighborhood, so to speak. I think we could probably have sufficient information to probably refer to them with that.
It seems like that would be the right steps, the sequence.
Yeah.
Rather
Obviously,
than
we can't approve anything till they get the ZBA variances.
Right.
Right.
So,
So long as those are carefully enumerated and your report is clear, which seem to have,
Yeah, we have this plan, we also have the site plan, the subdivision plan that was prepared, that's all this in there as well.
You need variance for just about everything.
Pretty much. Except for one or two here.
What about a proposed structure on the second lot? I mean, can a conforming structure be built there?
I'd have to talk to the architect, he's not here, that's a good question. So, I mean, I would assume you could get something on there, but I feel like if we made the variance, it might seep into the side lot line.
That's a very good question.
I would assume they would need variances for whatever.
Yeah.
That goes without question.
I mean, are we creating a cascade of
Right.
additional issues is really my question. And maybe it's appropriate. I mean, there are all these, modest size homes that are probably not conforming, that are not
Yeah,
conforming.
well, I think that's the reason we took it on was to see if that was the case, and I think he's made the case that is consistent with the neighborhood. And so,
Yeah, if you see in the plan, you see all the boxes are actually all the residences with their driveways, so they're pretty much, I mean, if you look at them right now, when we put the house on the second lot, it would match any of those properties that are there
yeah.
already.
I mean, I'm not prepared to say that putting a two-family house a new two-family house on a new subdivided lot is appropriate. I mean, that's becoming self-inflicted at that point, perhaps, I don't know. So,
the ZBA's task is to provide the minimum
Relief.
relief necessary. And so they probably can make a case to subdivide because the other lot sizes and everything else in the neighborhood conform. It's really looking at a zone, an area that's not appropriately zoned or whatever,
Right.
when you have the number of variances we're doing. So then that's another leg that the ZBA can stand on when they get, but they should do the minimum necessary, which may mean taking the two-family down to one family, or it could mean anything, but that's the case you'd have to make there.
How many families are you proposing for the second lot?
I'm sorry.
How many family units are you proposing for the second
I
lot?
believe we could do two, and then the other one would be just a one family.
Right.
And how many of them are two-family now?
On this block,
Yeah, we have to have here.
yeah. The one
Here's
just on the
the,
block.
setback.
We have the totals for the
That's
year.
where it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
So,
There's 10,
just on the
so
Bow
they're
Street.
extending almost 2 feet there.
There's two families and three families.
Mhm.
And then Maple Street, and then, and then the other side, there's an additional three family. Maple Street on the odds, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, two or three families. And then the even numbers, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
ZR1.
And among the variances that you're trying to get, is parking, what,
We are providing, right now, we do have parking on site.
you're taking care of the on-site, okay.
With respect to the 74, maybe the existing residents already now has street parking. So the other side would have parking on site, so we would affect that.
Okay.
If it's a mobile home, you can do parking and housing.
Looking at DeVoe here, the predominant use is one thing. It's not inconceivable that in referring this to the ZBA, given the number of variances, that we could include a recommendation that only a single-family house be permitted on their township design, to make the case based on what the table shows. It's a clear majority, and having done the study is very helpful, I think.
Yeah.
Get a clear picture that the clear majority is in.
Do you have in your PowerPoint the site plan, which I think you submitted previously with the proposed structures?
you mean
Now, you have
This is the proposal in lot 2, and then lot 1 is the 2.5 story. We do have a driveway on
I don't think we ever had a building.
Because it would be, I don't know why you didn't combine these two diagrams and go back to the other one, and, because what would be interesting to see, I have a feeling it would be favorable, but it'd be interesting to see your proposed footprints.
That could easily be done.
Yeah, on top of the existing one, because I think in the end, that'll tell, at least from a massing and scale point of view, whether or not it looks like it's more or less in context with this neighborhood.
Could you move your proposed building over 1.9 feet and eliminate one of the variances?
I guess so. I'd have to take a look at that. Maybe you do that and we get rid of some of it.
So what is it what is wanted of us?
Well, that's what I'm trying to find. I mean, I think well, were you at the zoning board meeting?
No, I wasn't.
You weren't at the zoning board?
The architect, I believe, is only one meeting that was previous application.
My understanding was, but I could have to confirm this, that it was sent here because they felt that we would be in a better position to evaluate the appropriateness of, or make a recommendation even on the appropriateness of the variances required. Although if we don't have a specific house, it's hard to make all the variances, but conceptually, we can,
Sort of massing study, I mean.
yeah.
When do they meet? Next,
I think they meet next,
so it's too late to submit to them.
it's too late for this meeting, yeah.
I would suggest that you lay the plan on there, see if, come back with an actual, sort of house-ish thing, that, if possible, gets rid of one of the variances required.
Now, would that affect the zoning board?
No, I mean, we just,
We still get a positive recommendation to the zoning board, is there any chance?
I guess the problem is the degree of variance they grant. Depends on whether it's a one or two family house, depends on anything that we might look at in terms of site planning.
Yeah.
So I've got second thoughts a little bit about just shooting it on, thinking that we should do a little work on this, and then maybe at our next meeting, we'd be prepared with a resolution to transmit it. Here's site planning considerations, looking at this site planning, subdivision considerations. And we do believe variances are required, and we've studied the layout of the site, and this is the.
Right, I agree with you. I mean, I guess what would be, I just so you know, I'm like, I am inclined to feel like this is fine. It seems like it's contextual with the neighborhood and so on. I think what would be really helpful is if you could present a kind of illustrative site plan and some illustrative elevations where the variances are called out. In other words, you know what I'm saying? And that's really almost all the information on the drawing. It's a site plan with the subdivision, the two buildings, and it says side yard needs to be 4, it's 3. If you could, so that we could get a sense of what the relationship is between the variances that you're asking for and this kind of massing kind of stuff, right? And then we'd have, because right now, to be honest with you, I can't keep in my head what these variances, where they actually are and what their impact might be. And I think the board is sympathetic to the overall direction of the project, but if you could just present something that just lays out graphically all the variances, and then might give us a comfort level, right, about
And also then he's making a commitment, it's a one family and it's a certain, it's not bigger than
Right.
a certain envelope and so on.
Right.
Well, it's really like the massing and the footprint
Yeah.
that I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
need to be comfortable with.
Exactly.
Do we have sky exposure plan here, Dylan? So that's not a variance, but that's a potential obstacle in the
Sure.
HRB.
Yeah, although there again, I'm sure it's one of these neighborhoods where none of the houses, right, I'm guessing.
No, it should, but it seems it should be brought to the
That
fore.
probably,
Yeah.
yeah, it should be described, that's true.
It's right across the middle of the house.
I'm sure none of the houses
I mean, it's a
meet it,
requirement for a
but
review
we
anyway.
should at least document it.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob, that was good.
You know what, I'm sorry, you probably have it on there, but, things like trash and all this other,
Sure.
I mean, this may seem like we're putting you through a lot of work, but on the other hand, the answer is no. I mean,
But, yeah.
Well, you'd have to do this
But,
eventually anyway, so.
But, a friendly no.
a friendly, yeah, a sympathetic no.
A sympathetic no.
I don't think so.
We'll be back.
The next item on our agenda is item number, where are we here?
5.
Item number 5, the continuation of pre-submission conference for proposed multifamily residential building at 155 Beacon Hill Drive.
Is anybody here?
Is Christina still here?
Go look outside.
Is she tied up outside? Is she trying to get in?
When are we gonna want a public hearing on this one?
Which?
The one we just looked at?
Does he have to notice all the
Yeah.
people around and?
Well, I think it's, until the variances come
I think
in,
we
we don't
get to
really
a
have
point
another
that
role
it's in
beyond
there.
this.
Okay.
I think Christina called it a night.
Yeah. All right, we'll pick that up later. On item number 6 is continuation discussion MDR zone. I'd like to move that to the end of the agenda so that we can deal with people who are here. Item number 7 is pre-submission conference for site plan review for proposed new single-family residences, lot 19 and 20 at 548 Broadway.
While they're getting that going, I'll introduce ourselves. My name is Jim Zappi. I'm the chairman of Zappico. We're a local real estate development company. We've been developing homes in Westchester for 30 years. I'm a professional engineer. This is my son Brandon. He's definitely an engineer, and my son Brian. We've been on the planning boards for 30 years. And this is the coolest thing. This is the only town I think that has this. I was wondering if you got Mexico to pay for it. So anyway, what we're here for is, we had bought 3 lots on Broadway, and we had sold 2 of the 3. So we're here as their applicant to construct a single-family home, and we're going through the process right now, and I'll have my son Brian who worked on the site plan, explain it to you, and between the 3 of us, hopefully we can answer your questions.
Good evening. So, what we have over here is the site plan for the single-family home, and I sent that note to George for comments. So far, I haven't heard anything back. And pretty much, we've actually obtained the New York State DOT permit for curb cutting utility connection. We just got a copy of that today. It was issued yesterday, just for the board, just so you guys know. We did put some trees along the side of the property line for screening, and we proposed continuation of the sidewalk as requested. We also have some, page 2. Basically, we have an easement that goes between this lot and the lot next to it, where this house and the house next to it, both driveways will be able to be accessed from. Currently, we are proposing stormwater in the back with the overflow out to the front, and it was requested to have more of a level spreader, so the drain in the driveway is going to act as the level spreader and an overflow. So, Square, any questions so far?
Just on the, did I hear you say that you received the approval on the curb cut from the state?
Yes, and I actually wrote a paper copy as well.
Okay, and so All right, so there'll be one curb cut here, and are you involved in the third property on the corner?
I believe it's in contract.
Yes, we are involved in it.
So I wanted to confirm that the driveway there for that property would come off of the side street, I assume?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
That's a good question. So, you know, I don't have a pointer with me. Basically, the one applicant here is, don't laugh when I say this, his name is Brockler. And the other applicant, and they each own their own lot. So what New York State likes to do, being a Broadways Estate Road, when you have two houses that are next to each other, they like to combine and do a common driveway. So it's hard to see, but right here is an easement. It's an ingress-egress easement, and what that does is allow both residents to come in and out of this spot here. As Brian had mentioned, we do have in our hand a permit to construct this, as well as to construct utilities, all the trenching across the road, sewer and water, whatever we need to do. We do have that permit. Along the travels in Brian's meeting with some people, some staff from the town, they had asked us if we would mind putting in a sidewalk. We have no problem doing that. He also had mentioned that we have on-site retainage for the stormwater. And what's pretty cool about this property is because we're doing a driveway, a common driveway at the entrance, it allows us to berm up between the driveway, the house, and Broadway. So, do we have a planting plan? So there's a planting plan here, and this will be a berm. And it kind of hides the house, the garage, and this one will have the same thing, it will kind of be a mirror image. So this area will be planted. Anybody driving by or walking by is going to have a really tough time to see the garages. Now, as you go down to this house, when you're driving by, you can clearly see all the pavement, you can see the garage doors and stuff. That will not be the case here. So it kind of worked out nicely, you know, using the element of the common driveway for the landscaping as well.
Excuse me, are any variances required for this project?
No.
Thank you.
Right here, I just have street views of the property, so you can see what the, right here, what it looks like. Pull it up. So, this is standing in front of the property right now.
This is Broadway.
Come down, this is the specific lot right here. These are the neighboring houses right next to it.
Yeah, this is, it won't look like this.
Yes. This is the left of it, just so you guys see.
So back to the map. Here we are.
So can I ask you, what was the, I thought there was a, I mean, and I guess it was, wasn't there the possibility of entering, isn't there an easement or something that connects the backs of the properties from either Sherman or whatever the others, McClellan, or is it McClellan or Sherman? Isn't there a paper street or something that connects?
It's an interesting question that we asked because we had thought that originally too. When you look at the tax maps, it looks like there's an easement, like an alleyway, to access these lots. In fact, what that is this garage, there's a driveway here, belongs to the other guy.
Oh, wow.
So there isn't. And going through the process and talking to our customers, we thought it would be better, even though it's not the ideal situation to come off Broadway. But the better situation is they would have more of a private backyard. It would be quiet and be buffered from the street. So that's how this plan was, how it evolved.
And who's actually building the houses?
We will.
And you're building both?
Yes.
And, you know, usually we deal with, you know, people complain because things are excessively dissimilar. My concern would be that the two identical houses are side by side, which I find to be unattractive in general, and I don't know, so I don't know what I mean, I understand that they're probably likely to be basically the same plans inside, but I think it would be I mean, and this is more for the AHRB anyway than it is for us, I guess, but I feel like it would be good for them to be not cookie cutter identical.
Right. We have modified the outsides. The insides have some minor variations, but it's a typical center home colonial, go-in dining, living room, family room, kitchen, very popular plan. What's nice about it also is we can access off the back. The houses look different from the outside. From the air, from the helicopter view, they're rectangles.
No, I know.
Can you bring up that view of the neighboring houses again from eye level that you had? It was interesting, because I'm always a little wary of the facade that's facing the street, with an open garage. And it's really the entrance to the house is on the side, and it's a nice entrance. But I see that the other houses all are doing the same thing. It's, basically the side of the house. No, but I mean, this is not, your houses are not dissimilar in that they have the garage facing Broadway and.
Yeah, we have stone treatments and
Yeah.
garage doors and.
But essentially, the front door of the house is on the side.
Yes.
Yeah. And it looks nice, I mean.
Thank you. So that's it. Any other questions? We kind
Yeah.
of pushed off a couple of planning board meetings. Yes, sure.
And that's the sky exposure plan that you're showing?
Yes, fully conforming. If you pull up the
And essentially, all the garage and everything is screened with your berm and.
Yes.
And your,
Yeah. So if you get a chance, you should check out the website. You can actually see some of the homes that we've built, some of them we have on the market.
Yeah, we changed the exteriors differently so they don't look like identical houses.
But the sides are just straight flat, there's no definition on the sides? Again, it's a AHRB issue, but,
It looks perfectly flat, but there is an indentation towards the middle.
And they're dormers.
Bumps in.
And what we do is we use some siding treatments also to give it some direction. We were bumped off a few meetings and our customers are anxious, so we were just hoping tonight that we can get through this process and out to the architectural review board.
well, not quite that fast.
Well, is there a resolution, I mean, are we?
One little issue that came up, and maybe that's why you got bumped off, or bumped off's a lousy expression, so got pushed from one meeting to the next. There was a question about the map, the tax map, that showed that there was one lot, and then there's history that shows that at one point at least it was 3 lot subdivision. So we wondered if you needed to apply for subdivision approval. There wasn't any, and we understood that you could create 3 legal lots. I think you're saying, well, we already have 3 legal lots, why do we have to go through and create 3 legal lots? So there was a question that came up that we were hoping the attorneys would resolve. I haven't heard from them, to make sure that we are not delaying you by just saying, okay, your only review is a site plan review, and before that, you have to have a public hearing, which would be something you'd hope to set tonight. But the question was, is there an issue about this being, that the tax guys have decided it's 1 lot, and did that some way merge the 3 lots, or 2 of the 3, and is that floating around there that'll delay you at some point? That's the one question we had. So I gather you probably don't want to apply for subdivision approval, believing you already have it, or do you want to do that at the same time?
Well, you're right. So we were asked to provide certain information, and one of them was a subdivision map. And we provided a subdivision map which matched the lots. So there's a modified subdivision here. We furnished the map to the town attorney. We bought the property, our title company confirmed that it was 3 lots. We sold it then to other customers who had an attorney and title company, and they also confirmed. And then there's bank financing with another layer of title company and attorneys looking at it, and they financed it.
So if something later comes up, we've done the best we could to ask the question anyway, so, because I think it's not, I mean, it's an extra step. but it is not, that you would not be able to create 3 legal lots. So if you're satisfied you've got 3 legal lots, it's not issued to you, then it really just comes down
Not an issue.
to setting a public hearing for site plan.
Yeah, I would agree. Any other questions at this point for the board? Yeah, I would move we set a public hearing on this. Are we doing both?
Yes.
We're doing both. Okay, for the 2 properties, one is at, what number, what, I'm sorry, what numbers are these? They can't both be 548.
The actual address is going to be determined later by Brian Cook. There is room with the neighboring lots for the actual address. However, last planning board meeting, we were unable to make it, but we did have one of our attorneys come here and another representative on our behalf. But we got kicked back into this meeting because of the same issue. So for this specific lot, we were wondering if you could waive the public hearing.
Just for the first lot?
Just for the first lot. And then-
Okay, we're just doing, we're calling that 548?
No,
I
we can't.
think it's lot 3.
Lot three is 548 is on the corner, and the next house that's currently standing is 544. So you have 2 lots in between. You cannot have 548, 546, and then 544.
No, you
So
can't.
we take it.
You can't do that.
Correct. So the corner lot of 548 is gonna have a different number. So they will all end up at, starting to the north, it'll be 542, 540, I'm sorry, 546, 548, and 550.
And I would think for emergency, for 911 purposes, the one on the corner should have a final address.
That depends on where the frontage of the house is it's gonna be similar to these, where the front is
No,
on the
the
side.
frontage would be McLeod.
The front is on the side, it's on McClellan. Yes. That's a possibility, I'll consider that.
But then,
Oh, I see,
but
okay.
then does that give you the extra number of space you need?
Yeah,
then?
that gives me the extra number space.
For calling the public hearing now, Brian, what, we have to have a number or something.
I can give you the number now that I know you'll accept the McClellan address.
Yes.
I can give
All
you-
right, well,
So I'm sorry, what are we doing? We doing 2 public hearings?
But we're asking to waive this first one because
We had a representative on our behalf last week, last planning board session, where we could not make it, where this issue came up again.
I don't think we can do that, right? We have to have a public hearing. I mean, that's part of our, there wasn't a public hearing last time, and this is not a public hearing, as we noticed, it's a public hearing, they're all
okay. So then maybe we can do
We
this.
do it all at once,
Okay.
yeah.
right? But we can do them
Yeah, we can do
Together.
the 2 of them together.
All right.
Nine.
Well, I move that we have public hearings on applications at 540 something and
546 and 548.
All right,
I like that.
546 and
I like that.
548
I'd like that
Broadway
address.
at our next meeting.
540 something else.
All right.
Thank you. That's what I was thinking.
Number 8, pre-submission conference for site plan review, you're welcome, for proposed additions on property located at 41 Blanchard Avenue. Good night.
Good evening, it's Max Managi, I'm the architect of Macron project. Since the system is so cool, we decided tonight to go old-fashioned traditional easel presentation. I hope you don't mind. I have photographs, I will pass them around, it's pretty clear. Single family house is currently achieved. We are putting an addition on the property. It's around the existing house. This is the existing front elevation. It's a Cape
I think it would, I know it's impossible for us to see it and the audience to see it, so I pick us. So if you could move that up a little bit.
Actually, I was, if you don't mind, just.
Or if the,
pass it around.
can we turn those lights on if we're not
Yeah.
gonna use the projector?
Sure, I can turn them on.
It might work, actually, you may be able to make the audience be able to see it if, If we turn on the lights under the.
Yeah, actually, it's dim.
Oh, this is good, I like it here.
But I can turn it on. The existing house is approximately.
Now, maybe you can move it kind of back where it was, so the audience can see it, or maybe at an angle, I don't know.
It's approximately 2,000 square feet of house, the existing, including the second floor, and we are adding 1,500 square feet. We have been to the architecture review board. They have had some issues with the sky exposure lines and some of the fenestration, which we have addressed. We were encroaching into the sky exposure line in a couple of spots, but due to the geometry of the lot, I would like to point out that the encroachment was the lot being trapezoidal in shape. The encroachment was basically in the first like 4 or 5 feet. Nevertheless, we complied, we went back, we had dormers and pink roofs and dormers, which are.
Do these reflect the changes?
Yes.
Okay.
This is after it's been approved by the architectural review board. In terms of zoning parameters and zoning data, we are complying with all the data. There is no variances required. The average height of the neighborhood, we surveyed 14 homes, and it's around 33.65, and we are not even up against that number. Average height is below, I believe, around 32 feet. So 32 or 32. So we are really not against any of the numbers in terms of impervious surfaces or setbacks or most of these, all of it is as of right. We changed some of the windows, we flattened these windows for the architectural review board. They were in agreement with us that the house was within character of the neighborhood. We have all the surrounding homes. This 33 Blanchard is in that triangular lot across the street. 38 Blanchard, and this is 44 Blanchard, which is the house to our left, which is not in front of the house. And these are some of the elevations. This is again 54 Blanchard. And this, I believe, is 38 Blanchard. These are the homes to our left and right. This is to the right, as you stand in front of the house. And 54 Blanchard is to the left as you face the house. I can bring this closer if you want to see the character of the home. Other than that, it's a simple, straightforward second floor addition. If you have any questions.
And it's just 1 story, it's not 2.5 or something?
No, it's just 1 story cape now. We're putting.
No, I mean an additional 1 story.
It's an additional 1 story, correct.
So I'm sorry, I see from your zoning information schedule that there are a number of variances required, is that correct?
No, none.
Really?
There's no variances required. There is one pre-existing condition, which is, if I'm not mistaken, my right-hand setback, which is pre-existing on the first floor, and we have set back the house on the second floor with a little roof on the side to conform to the new, so not to increase the non-conformity, basically. So we are not increasing any non-conformity. There is absolutely no variances required. Usually we have an asterisk in front of it, but all of this is at the right.
Your eave heights here, maximum ridge height, the allowed, you're showing is 28, and you're proposing 28.83. So right here, on your maximum ridge height
Yes.
And your maximum eave height, you're exceeding what you've stated to be the maximums.
I think that is actually 26.92, so that might be a typo. We are at 26.92 the average of leaves. Let me just see. Maximum eave height required is 22, existing 19.55, and proposed is 21.66, I'm sorry.
That's a mistake on the,
And the ridge height is at 32.41. So the eave height, the proposed is 21.66. I'm not exactly sure. That might be the previous one before we went to. Yeah, that's before we went to the. It is 21.66.
and the other numbers?
And the other number.
The 28.
The average is 32.41. The average is 33.65, and we are at 32.41.
That's the maximum ridge height? No.
The median of 14 homes surrounding 200 feet.
Oh, I see, okay.
We surveyed around 14 homes. The height, the median height was 33.65, and we are at 32.41. The average height from the average corners of the lot.
Okay. Otherwise, but this is what the HR.
Probably is before we went to the
HRB.
and we went back and we surveyed the surrounding homes.
Okay.
And came up with the average.
George, you haven't had a chance to opine on this, as I,
That's correct.
I would,
But it looks, I mean, I'm not saying engineering drawings and site plan, I don't know. That's, is there anything immediately that you would
Are
require?
you changing the impervious area?
We have a little change in impervious areas, yes. The allowed is 54%. The existing is 42.98, and the proposed is 46.89. But we are allowed up to 54%. We are basically adding also a deck and some walkways in the back of the property.
To answer your question, probably maybe some drainage. It doesn't sound like much.
Oh, we have an engineering, Dr. Michael's time.
Okay.
I have an engineer, I can present it to you if you want.
oh, he'd love to see
I
it.
thought that we were here for the time. Michael does all of the engineering for my company. So this is the plan. There is no dry wells. He just has an attenuation. He has an attenuation pipe here, and we're going, I think, directly to the.
So he's mitigating any increase in stormwater.
There is no, I mean, there is increase, but he's mitigating it correctly.
So we haven't looked at it, but it looks like they have the necessary area to mitigate any increases. So you're looking to waive or something?
Yeah, I'd like to suggest to the board that we consider waiving site plan approval subject to review by the village engineer.
Absolutely, I'm sorry about this. I thought Michael had already submitted this, and I think he did submit this to the town meeting.
Yeah, we submitted it.
Submitted them,
We
yeah.
submitted the 12 copies.
We submitted to a copy. Brian, we submitted this. This came through the office.
They should have all been distributed.
Well, we didn't.
But still,
we didn't
you're-
look at it.
you're-
They haven't looked at it because they haven't.
Come on, get it.
Okay.
But there is no major
Okay, well,
site
you look
damage or
at-
spillover into neighboring.
Right. Well, I'll make that a motion that we waive subject to village engineer's approval.
And any necessary fees be paid for the site plan review, right?
Oh, yes, of course. Is there a second?
Has this meeting been noticed?
That's a waiver, I think they can do it.
I mean, the AHRB was publicly noted, is that right?
No, it's
Yeah.
been noted.
Yeah.
We have the papers were there. And
Yeah.
the actual affidavit.
All right.
Yeah.
Also would like to point out, Mr. and Mrs. Julka and the whole family has been residents for almost 30 years, and they all live more or less in the same neighborhood, and they all have. So, I have all of them.
So if you could give those to Brian.
And the affidavit is also reviewed, Brian?
What is this for? Is this sort of notice to certainly hasn't been publicly noticed?
For the AHRB.
All right, well, there's I've made a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Okay, I would like to respectfully request if there is no neighbors here, if you could make the public hearing part of that. It's April already, we would like to.
It already happened.
It's all waived.
You got what you need. You missed it.
Maybe we should reopen it. I don't know.
No, I missed that part, sorry. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. All right, item number 9, pre-submission conference for site plan review for proposed site improvements, including landscaping, retaining walls, and various parking areas at 145 Palisade Street.
Call NYPD.
No, that's mine. That's mine. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, you saw something and you said something, and I said something, and then it was
Here it is. Good night.
I'm waiting for somebody to come in with the full redevelopment.
It's really nice. I mean, I'm waiting for the big
Then we talk about traffic.
One thing is, is there a way, I know that you can get across, but is there a connection to the new part?
Which is a rare. He's talked to the village about tearing down.
You wanna do that? You wanna, that's paid for.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
I can't believe he's trying to control that. Got to go through a whole
There's a whole, yeah, there's a whole swamp thing. On the west side one, and the villagers through there.
extending the parking lot of Great Lawn is not.
West interested
No,
in.
the boat wouldn't take it.
Oh, I see, this is on the, this is on the, next to the stream,
We got to George Road,
Mm.
because
on
it's.
the eastern side of the tracks.
Eastern side. We have more technology problems tonight than usual.
Yeah.
Everybody's, but it's resident. It's us.
Are we good? Is this the last
Hmm?
one? Is this the last one? We have one more? Are you gonna do
No,
it?
we have discussion of,
Which one are you ready from the R2? What, Brad?
oh, yeah.
You know, so it might be that the CBD is going to the cap.
Maybe that's those two guys on the left.
So they're adding a garage up here.
The walking trail.
This garage, that's garage.
It's a village. It's a village. It's gonna look like yours. You know, 'cause they're right down here.
That's not a good sign. Maybe it is.
So I'm Michael Lewis, the architect. Thanks for your patience as we get started. This is proposed site work at 145 Palisade Street. Here's the location. You're probably all familiar with the building. Here's the location. And my intention is to sort of zoom in and walk you through the work we're doing at a number of locations around the site. Coming in, you can see the main building and then the bridge across, and then the driveway that comes down and services the building. We'll be working at a number of areas around. The lot extends up into this corner, and then fronts onto Palisade Street.
Can you pull that stand
I
back?
was gonna say, without hopefully not disconnecting anything, can you just roll to the side and back? Right. Steve, you'll be able to see it from here now.
You can't vote from there.
So,
Why don't you stand on the other side?
Oh, no, yeah, just stand the other side of the board. No, just like.
There you go.
I'm not sure what's going on here. The whole thing just collapsed.
Yeah, there on the bottom?
Is that it?
Like what we did at and scroll.
Oh, that would be great, thanks.
But I'm here.
Flo's one of the owners, by the way. So here's the site plan. We've got work happening at a number of places. This is Palisade Street here, and the road leading down the main building, and the areas across the bridge. Okay. Here's a key plan. We have work in 7 areas. The Palisade frontage, we're expanding one of the tenant lots. We're refurbishing the hydrant shed. We're adding an equipment garage, refurbishing the oil tank storage shed, expanding the paving a little bit on the south parking lot, and then providing sort of general improvements along the roadway.
I don't think you mentioned what's right in front of the building.
Oh, yeah, and thank you. and plantings and sidewalks around the north and east side of the building. Starting on the east frontage on Palisade Street, we're doing basically a beautification process here that takes the existing sidewalk and wall and then works with it to improve the overall effect as you approach the building on Palisade Street. Here's a view looking south on Palisade Street. You can see that there's a fence that's been there for many years, a sidewalk, and then it drops off, and behind it is the parking lot, and then down further is the entry to the building. Here's a view down the sidewalk. You can see the fence is old and deteriorated. And then on the back side of it, you can see that next to the sidewalk there's a wall, and then the fence basically keeps the pedestrians from falling over the wall. Our plan is to infill so that we bring the grade up to the top of the wall and then build a new retaining wall back about 12 feet so that and then remove this fence so that as people are walking, there's no danger of falling off of the walkway. And then on top of the new retaining wall, we'll be adding another fence that serves to screen the parking lot from the pedestrians.
Those trees that are there will be retained?
Yeah, there are 3 trees there. 2 of them we're retaining. The third one is completely rotted out. The nearest one will be removing that. Okay, so this line right there is the existing retaining wall along the walk, and this is the new retaining wall. There's the space in between. Here are the 2 existing trees, and then we'll be planting the space in between the existing wall and the new wall. Then we'll be extending the wall next to the driveway around the corner, and then building the new wall and fence around the corner so as to screen the parking lot. Here's a quick sketch that shows the walkway, the existing retaining wall, the new fill, the new top of the stone retaining wall, and fence above it. Here's a section of what's proposed, the existing walkway, existing retaining wall, where we filled it in, the new retaining wall that's going to come up about 2 feet above grade, and then 4 feet of fence above it for a total of 6 feet. It gives us 8 feet of screening power on the parking lot side. Here's an initial sketch showing the kind of fence we're anticipating with a modular stone wall and then a wood slatted fence. We're thinking of really sort of expressing the materiality being the main feature of this, using a really nice wood. And then by articulating the width of the slats and spacing and mounting it on steel struts, working hard to make sure that this is a really nice fence. It'll also serve as a backdrop for signage, which would probably be extremely minimal on the fence. You can see that the height, it does a great job of screening the parking lot now because the cars are much lower beyond the fence.
Wait, can I ask you a question? Why put the fence up at all? Because it seems to me, I mean, I have to go look, but it seems to me, I mean, I like what you're doing, I like this section a lot, but I don't get the fence, because actually, I haven't walked by there in a while, but it seems to me when you walk there, it's actually, whether it's parking lot in the foreground or not, it's nice to actually be able to look down into the property. Am I wrong? I don't remember exactly now. Can't you see
I know what you're saying, I don't remember.
I think it's a big parking lot along the sidewalk, and we think it makes sense to screen it. I think it'll be an improvement, and I think it's a good question. I guess the question is, do you want to look over the parking lot into the trees or not? You don't really have a great view. You can see the building somewhat, but it's not a really great view from there.
Well, you're blocking the horizon, I mean, judging by your scale figure here, it's higher than a
Yeah.
person, right? So you're cutting off the horizon line.
Right, like theoretically, if you really wanted a fence or a hedge would be even nicer. It could be about a top, it goes high as like where the top of the 5 is on your
Yeah,
signage.
That's an interesting idea, to drop it down so that it would screen the cars.
And still see the trees, maybe, I mean, we should walk down, we should walk and actually see what you see looking into the property.
Are you planning to have vegetation in between?
Yes, it'll be planted.
With something that grows up, right? I mean, it looked like in your plan.
Right, we haven't done the landscape plan yet, but we weren't really planning on using the plantings for the screening. We were thinking the fence would do the screening. It's really all about beautifying the walk. We
Right.
feel like making a really beautiful fence. And
No,
then
it's way
planting-
better. I
and then
totally
planting
get it.
the margin.
Nice, nice, very.
As we move down the corridor, we're also looking at improvements at the entry to the property. Here, the existing retaining wall is at grade, and as it comes around the corner, we plan to keep that top of the existing, we plan to add to it and match the field stone and bring that retaining wall around the corner and keep the top of the wall pretty much at the same elevation. So as the grade falls down, the wall will emerge out of the grade and form a slightly raised planting bed that we can use to plant screenings to block the view of this lot from people heading north on Palisade Street. Then another stone wall also on this side, just to add some symmetry and to sort of finish off the entry. Along with that, we plan to plant these areas, to beautify these areas, and again, so basically what we're doing is we're screening the parking lot, and then beautifying the drive with plantings, lighting, and a small island to break up the parking. So this is 4 views at that corner. This is looking northwest. This is the parking lot that we want to screen. Gives you a little bit of a better idea about maybe why we want to screen it. And then the plantings would come along here. The wall would gradually, the top of the wall would stay level, but it would gradually emerge above grade and then form a planting bed with screening here, and then continue after the driveway into the lot on the other side. This is the other corner looking southwest, where we would be, again, cleaning this up and adding a retaining wall around it. Here again is the view looking north that shows how this wall, as it's filled, will be raised up above the level of the parking lot. And then this shows the areas here that this will be all cleaned up and planted so that it looks nice. Here's a sketch sort of showing the idea as you come around the corner with the fieldstone wall. It's a good place for signage. I think if we did signage there, it would probably be fairly subtle, letters that might stand off of the fieldstone. And then the plantings and the wall that screen the parking lot. When we originally started working on this, there were trucks in the lot. They're not there anymore. But the idea again is to have it look more natural and green. Also over here, we would be adding the island and lighting, and generally cleaning up the drive as we head down. And so as we go down the driveway, we'll look at work that's going to happen down below. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Midway down, there's a parking lot. Right now, the parking lot is a mixture of paving and gravel. This area up here is gravel, and so we're going to be extending the paving to sort of fill out the rest of this lot, this tenant lot. We'll be picking up the additional impervious stormwater with a retention system. Then over here is a little shed for that houses a fire hydrant and some other utilities will be refurbished. Here's a picture of the shed that we'll be reworking.
Have you done the sky exposure plan?
And then as we go further down into the lot, into the back corner is where we'll be doing the new equipment garage. So that's happening all the way in the north corner of the property. We're moving down towards it. Another slide. Right there. Another slide. Here's an excerpt of the site plan that shows the new proposed structure. It's 30 by 40, about 20 feet high. Needs extra height because it's to handle equipment, to house equipment. We've done another accessory shed on the property, and we're taking the precedent from that and also from the building with some of the details from the main structure. So, that one in particular. And this is the one that's in the back now. So we're sort of following precedent. We're not mimicking it exactly. We're sort of taking the same language and working with it.
I have to compliment you on that shed.
We approve that one.
That's a beautiful shed. Just a quick question though, the new shed you're building, it seems like it's right next to the stream. Is that an issue with?
No, sir, it's near the tracks.
No, but in all, the stream is just to the north of it.
That's right.
Is it,
runs
how far?
down that area of the property.
How far away is the, I mean, is it, I don't know, environmentally, is it the fact that you're constructing something there, is it special? Is it a flood zone or anything like that?
I don't think it's a flood zone, but it's probably something we'll have to look into.
Yeah, there might be a buff, I'm sure there's I don't know what class stream it is, but there's probably, right, George, some kind of buffer.
Yeah, it might need to be.
100 or 50 feet, whatever, depending on what the classification is of the stream.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll contact your office and talk about that. We haven't received anything back yet on any of this, but what we can do. So here's the elevation, side elevation of the proposed shed. And then from here, we can look south to the building facade where work is proposed on the north and west facades, is consisting primarily of sidewalk and planting.
Sorry, before you leave that, who's your neighbor to the north here?
Excuse me?
The neighboring property to the north, what is that?
Landing.
Or is that?
It's the Wickers Creek
It's
easement.
Wickers Creek, right?
Yeah.
And then
Wickers Creek is first.
Wickers Creek and then the landing, I think.
So I think it would be good to show the nearest houses and so forth there.
Okay.
It's quite a ways.
It's pretty far.
If they fit on the map.
This is facing south facade. This is actually a rarely seen but beautiful facade of the building. It's being repaired. Next slide. One of the things that needs help is this, basically where it meets the ground, it's kind of a mess. So we're planning to add sidewalk and plantings along this edge to make it friendlier, more accessible. That's along here and here. It changes grade, so we'll be adding steps to accommodate that as it comes around the corner. And then on the front facade, basically there's an existing loading dock and platform and no sidewalks in this area, so we're sort of reworking this whole area. We'd like to transform the loading dock into a terrace with the idea that, the loading platform, with the idea that the loading dock will eventually find a new use. There are multiple loading docks in the building, so this one could be transformed into something it's more exciting, and there will still be ample freight accessibility for the tenants. Here's just a view showing what we're talking about. So here's the existing layout, and here's the new. This is the existing loading dock. We're going to transform that into a terrace. We'll keep the ramp, add planting around, and then provide a handicap ramp up to this second entry. This is the break line here, but then over on the end of the building, stairs down and more plantings to merge it into the driveway there. Then the last areas that we're dealing with are on the south side, where there's basically an old oil tank storage shed, and then there will be refurbishing and some paving that will be expanded. There's the shed. We'll be reworking it. And then at the bottom tip on the south side, we'll just be providing some additional paved area that the landlords have asked for facilities management. No variance is required. I think we're certainly going to need to confirm the setback from the waterway. Meanwhile, we've added some coverage, but we're well within what's allowed. And wherever we've added impervious area, we can take it into account with stormwater retention. That's it.
Thank you.
So what are the next steps with this?
Yeah, that's on.
This goes to, it's a recommendation to the Board of Trustees in this, and that's how it goes.
Is this the Board of
I
Trustees?
guess,
Why?
I guess the only, I mean, I think obviously it's all good stuff. The only thing I would think about is whether or not, given the fact that you're in, and I can't remember if have we even had a project that was in WFA or B. I feel like it's the last.
Trustees, the waterfront, they're, yeah.
Is doing something, like whether or not there's something creative to be done around stormwater management here, I think is.
Rain gardens and stuff?
Huh?
Rain gardens and that kind of stuff?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just feel like you have so much, you have like a big piece of property, so I feel like there ought to be room to do some green infrastructure, sort of stormwater solutions. I know that there is some requirement, right, George, that the state has some amount of the water is supposed to be handled through green infrastructure, is that right?
Yeah, since this is a redevelopment of a property, the DEC has some percentage, 25% of existing, 100% of new. So, yeah, that's something to look into.
It just seems like there could be bioswales, there could be things to kind of let the water, rather than expressing it in some pipe to the nearest sewer. So that's the only thing I would say. I mean, otherwise it's all really.
It's interesting because, again, if you imagine the site, it's, there's the underground stream which is feeding the pond, and then the slope is fairly steep. So we were looking for ways to keep the water, and hence want to keep it from sort of running down into the pond. There's not very much space there for doing that. There's not much space just because of the existing structure. The pond is obviously pretty well set. So it's as it is, it's really quite a beautiful setting that's been enhanced over the last year or so. But certainly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then that on the height of the fence, I just think, there's gotta be a trade-off between screening the parking, I get that, and blocking the horizon. Like, there's probably a line somewhere that.
We have to take a look to see if it really can see down in there. I mean, I know what you're saying, I just can't visualize it.
Maybe it's not real. Okay.
It may not be.
I think it's a good point that maybe we can fine tune that. When we were looking at it, we were eager to screen the parking, basically. That's really what was really driving.
I get that.
The idea of beautifying, it's a mess right now.
It is.
Beautifying that whole area and screening the parking, that was the goal. Maybe we were a little heavy-handed about it. I think we can live with those heights. We, again, when we first started doing this, there were trucks in the lot, and we were going for everything we could get. And since then, yeah, maybe we didn't adapt quickly enough. Since then, the trucks are no longer there, although I don't know if they may be again. But that makes a huge difference.
This is sort of an unrelated comment, but I was walking by that lot on a Sunday, and it's empty because Mercy doesn't have any classes on Sunday. And Our Lady of Pompeii was complaining about the fact that they didn't have any parking on Sunday, you know. They're worried about 75 Main, so maybe there's a deal that could be done, that they could, Our Lady of Pompeii could use that lot on Sunday for their services, but it's only a half block or so away. Unrelated.
That's all related, yeah.
I'm not sure
That's
they
good
have
stuff.
services.
No.
So this next step would be to call for public hearing?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Next step would be to call for public hearing then?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Site plan review, and it's mostly a landscape lighting plan is pretty much what it is. A little bit of-
Should we,
Is the seal
involve
good?
this month?
She looked at this once already.
Okay.
Earlier, because this came up earlier, and I don't know if you received her initial comments.
Well, I would move we call for a public hearing at our next, at the May meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
So one more question for on engineering, which is that, what's going to be stored in this building? You said it's for machinery or equipment or something? I mean, is there some?
The building owners have equipment that they use around the building, a snow plow, and other equipment, and they want to house it.
I just wonder if there's some preventative measure, you know, a continuous curb and a waterproofing or something for in case there's a spill of oil or gasoline or something.
Have a bag like that, I like that.
You know, the idea of machinery so close to the creek is a concern.
Right. My understanding is it's not, well, I guess they might.
The guy who practices
Or maybe we could attach some language to it about being more specific about what's there. I just looked at Flo, he's shaking his head, they're not gonna be storing any toxic materials there, but,
Well, you know, things, motors leak and whatever, you know, it's just something leaching through, if it's just a slab on grade, which I assume it is.
okay,
Good. All right, we'll see you next month.
thank you.
And item 10 on the agenda, or whatever number it is, 26 Bradley Street, parking. I hope you at least feel you had some education tonight at Dobbs Ferry Planning Board.
It's been a good civics lesson.
Oh, my God.
It's all about patience.
That's right. I drove by here today. Just
Michael Lewis is a good architect. This guy who just presented, he's really good.
saw the plan, I thought there was.
No, I think this is really good, but did you know when it was?
It's just Catherine Cal right here.
The only other thing is the shed for.
It could be, I don't know what
But
they've
there's
done.
no, like, what do you think the long-term plan is?
We know the people who live in the
I hope it's not just,
Oh. For housing.
so maybe they're, if they created, maybe they'll do something
Anderson.
interesting.
Yeah.
Where's Motherboard School?
Those people.
I mean, it is zoned for residential.
No, it's Senate, I'm saying.
I think it's residential. Hey, Brian, 145 Palisades is zoned for residential, right?
A is, yeah,
Oh, just the A building.
A.
Gotcha,
Which
gotcha.
one A, not the B?
Oh, okay.
B is the water.
Oh, so the-
We're ready.
it is.
Yeah,
on the A
please.
side.
Okay.
So I'm Thomas Wilkins, representing Julian Dobson, the owner of the property at Bradley Street. So hopefully this is simple compared to previous projects.
Nothing is, wait. You haven't, I don't like this project.
We prepared the schematic design for adding the two-car parking bay to the property that has no parking spaces at all, right? And it's the only property on Bradley Street that has no parking, so we have a little difficult site because the grade of the property is elevated above the streets about 10, 12 to 12 feet. And there is a very high stone retaining wall right now, which is about 10 feet above the street level. So we're thinking to rebuild this wall, cut into the property and basically enter parking before street parking starts here, right? So here's the no parking sign, no parking this way, right? So we're not taking any public spaces. And basically, this would be our proposed parking spaces, 12 feet from the property line, a little bit more than 12 feet from the curb street. Here's the property line. So we start at the property line at the front, right? Based on our analysis, there's no variances required. So our question is whether we should proceed with this design, hire the civil engineer and engineer the retaining walls to address the water runoff. How can you cut the car 23 feet before this no parking sign?
I'm just confused about the graphics on this plan. Is the herringbone kind of texture that you're showing there meant to represent some kind of paving, or that's just the area that you're disturbing? Like,
It would be different paving, just simply.
So,
Different paving than this.
so that sort of herringbone pattern, that's just a graphic?
It's just a graphic, but basically we are disturbing this much, right? This is our parking bay with the steps up to the, this level, the existing level, right? And we're thinking to slow down the grade here. So we're creating about 6 feet of the retaining wall, right?
Right, the reason I'm asking is because I'm wondering what you're gonna pave. What, are you just gonna, will you pave whatever paving material you're gonna have between the curb and your property line? Are you gonna extend that into the place where the cars are shown being parked here?
I think we're just simply gonna have a different paving between streets and parking here, and this is to be determined. I'm not really sure yet where we're going with this. So our main concern is whether our main concern would be whether we're gonna be allowed to cut the curb 23 feet approximately and have an entry zone to our bay, parking bay here, right?
Can you confirm that the ambulances from the hospital do not use Bradley?
No, they come up Washington, entering the hospital that way.
Thank you.
If they leave on Bradley, do they
Yeah,
not?
there's an exit on
The
Bradley.
exit on Bradley.
And they go to your, towards your property, or do they go?
No, they turn right and go down Washington.
Do you know why the no parking sign is there?
There is a speed bump out here, and the street is too narrow for parking.
Do people actually park there anyway?
Sometimes, yes. Although, actually, you get ticketed pretty quickly if you do. You know, there is, parking for the project. So parking actually on Bradley, I don't know if you know, this is actually pretty difficult.
Yeah, where do you park now? Where do you park now?
We park on the street. We have 2 cars.
Wherever.
So they're just basically cutting it out.
So is that stair the existing stair?
The existing stairs are here.
Oh, I see.
So they basically moved, there's a path from here to the stairs. That will
I
be
see.
moved.
Well, George will have to talk about the runoff issue. I guess just to go back to my thing, I just think you should say how you're gonna pave the whole thing, and it should probably be one treatment, I would think. Whatever you do, so that it looks like one, no? As opposed to having it one kind of paving up to the curb line, and then, I think, I don't know.
Cutting out this area, moving the stairs back.
And the, I'm sorry, so you're building a little retaining wall there, like by the trash can, right? If you go back to the photo, right, the ground is sloping up from the curb to the, you know, whatever it is, 10 feet in or something. And if you go back to your plan, so that area there where like the 63.72 is written on the right, that's sloping up, or you're just gonna?
Yep. So the existing wall is this line here, and with about a 1-in-1 slope up to, it's about 45 degree slope. Yes, something around 45, 1-in-1.
So that top of wall, that 95, that's probably gonna have to continue around a little bit, right? Because you're still sloping up, or?
No, we may be sloping this way probably from somewhere here sloping down this way and to the front, right? So.
You don't want to just,
We didn't really work this out 100%.
Okay.
you don't want to just buy a couple of Jeeps and just
We'll
drive up on the bank?
make sure that this is done in a way that there's no problem with this embankment here.
What's the thinking behind moving the cars 12 feet off the road? You know, the rear bumper's 12 feet off the street. I mean, don't you have to move a lot more earth? Isn't it a lot more disruptive than just, you know, having a couple feet behind the
They
wall?
park on their property.
They're trying to do it all on their property.
Oh, that's the street's actually that wide at that point.
The property,
The property is a property line.
the right of way,
Yeah, and it says-
so.
It's basically, there's no sidewalk, but there would be a sidewalk there for us.
Brian, are there any village issues we should be aware of here?
Well, I believe the 12 feet is part of the fact that the rear of the car is supposed to be 10 feet off of the property line.
Oh, wow.
So between the rear of the car, 10 feet off the property line, and 18 feet for the length of the car, they'd be going in approximately 28 feet.
Wow.
Well, how much leeway do we have to change that?
I guess that would be variant.
You mean technically speaking, they theoretically have to bring their cars even further in?
You would be in their basement.
Yeah, I mean, surely we're not gonna
That's not gonna,
do that, right?
You know, I've seen garages built into the hillside where basically,
it's,
you know, the
flush
front,
with the
the
street.
front yard is
Yeah.
the top of the garage.
Yeah.
They do that a lot up around your area.
This is not a
Yeah.
garage, it's an open space.
And it's
Yeah.
not high
It's a
enough for a
hill.
garage. They don't have the height.
But if they go in even further,
No, you are in the basement.
They got a basement.
That would be even more disruptive, I think.
Well, so, I mean, Brian, so what is that? That's a variance, that's a
Yeah, that would
zoning?
be a variant.
Okay.
And Brian, do we get involved in, I don't know, something so small like this with snow removal and where they put it?
Well, they would have to be able to remove the snow without placing it into the street.
Yeah.
that could be a complication. So you may make it a little wider perchance, so you have a place to put the snow on the side, or someone's gotta be awfully strong to throw it up that.
They look healthy.
Well, on the other hand, the street is not in that first 10 feet or so.
Right, but they have to drive their car through.
Well, yeah, but
Perhaps a heated driveway?
I don't know.
I guess there is some room here, in this corner, that the snow would be piled up.
And then so you would have a fence also
well,
all around there, right? So people don't fall from the front yard into the,
Yeah. Yeah, you need a fence.
That's true.
Have they thought of roofing it over?
Well, then it's a garage.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
well, right now it's only 5 feet. It's not like,
Oh, it's 5 feet.
Drainage.
well, so what procedurally I mean, if they really do need a variance, should that be step one, so we don't,
Get them the legal application, and then, go.
But the note to his question, other than this variance issue, the depth, the question he was asking about making the curb cut or whatever, the total width of the curb cut, there are no issues around that, right?
Well, that's not actually building department issue, that's the DPW.
So do they have to get some other approval?
Not necessarily another approval, but they should talk to the superintendent of public works about the curb cut and how that's going to affect the flow of water that does come down radically in your
Because they have
direction.
a lot of flooding on Bell.
Yeah, so
Big runoff
this
issues.
way you don't create a place for the water to come into that you don't desire it to be there.
where do people put their trash currently? Or where do you put it? Out on the,
We have, trash by the fence here.
but when you take it for collection, you put it actually in the street?
Yeah.
That's what I do. Sometimes I put it in the garbage can, but sometimes I just throw it out there on Judson Avenue.
Oh, I know your house. No,
Huh?
Maybe our next question, whether we use area here would be screened, which is actually our property lines between the street and the property line.
Oh, right, yeah. That's beyond your property.
No, that would be off the property.
No, that would be not on our property line. So, the question is whether we can create this kind of area here.
Well, couldn't it be next to the steps there in that little triangle next to the car?
Here?
Yeah.
Well, we could, I mean, that was
Or you
my
could
first
tuck-
thought, but it wouldn't look good.
You could even tuck it under the stair, because at that point you're at that landing, aren't you up?
You have a hollow in it.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. All right, so maybe just bring it under the stairs. Okay.
well, do you see the direction, zoning board and then back to us?
Yes, I mean, any recommendation from the planning board, I mean, we go in this direction, I mean, before we hire a civil engineer to design our retaining walls and address issues of the stormwater. I mean, if you have to go through zoning, variance, so I guess that's
Yeah.
that's our next step, right?
It's your next step, and then come back and see.
DPW consultation, right?
But I mean,
And then we can actually engineer everything and come back to planning board, right, with a full set of.
well, do we need
You don't
engineer,
need-
do we
you don't
need
need a full
engineering
set.
here? Are we gonna need engineering for a review here? Can they do that after they see us? And then it's just contingent on the engineering being? I mean, if their concern is not spending the money before they get all their approvals.
Yes.
So couldn't they come with a slightly adjusted plan that's sufficient for us to review?
They could.
Yeah.
Yeah, there will be architecture review board because the walls are higher than 30
That's
How
up there.
fun.
You're gonna be,
CDA, right?
Yeah, you can go between the planning board and the architecture review board simultaneously.
Okay.
So you can wait on your engineering.
you're gonna meet everybody.
We thought this was gonna be simple.
I'm saying just buy a Jeep and just drive up the hillside.
Okay. That's it.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you. We'll see you in a month or so, maybe. The last item on our agenda, if we wish to deal with it, is proposed revised MDR2 zone. Is there any updating, George?
Oh, it's way tough.
Actually, we can hold off and do whatever you want, but the question we had, a little bit of guidance from the board, we wanted to keep it simple. That was my recommendation. I should have said, I wanted to keep it simple and just make a couple of changes that we identified about the front yard, the lot coverage, and the eliminating the apartment complexes. And that could be done at our next meeting with a small memo and a resolution, and that's it.
Let's do it.
We didn't think we should mess with the height, because it's sort of.
No, it's too desperate, I mean, the area,
Yeah, I think that's a
That's
really good
okay,
start.
we'll just do that.
yeah, that would be fine.
Do we want to do anything about that other neighborhood?
Well,
The-
Maple Avenue.
Yeah? Or, I mean, obviously not
That's
tonight,
That's
but I
an
mean,
MDR1 zone.
but I mean, it seems like it's the same kind of thing where, in our brilliance,
You mean the one we split?
wrote a zoning that
But no, I
nothing
think it's-
conforms to.
We split it wrong, you mean that one?
It's just looking at MDR1A.
No, just
MDR1B,
all
or-
those non-conforming, the
Right,
earlier
right.
ones,
DeVoe Street.
so much is non-conforming, it seems like a similar situation to,
It is really, when you do zoning, you don't want more than, I don't know, 20%, 30% non-conforming.
Mm.
Sometimes you're stuck with that because of old neighborhoods and things like that, but when they're all non-conforming, you should.
right,
And you know
clearly.
what, that neighborhood by Maple and DeVoe, right, it's really nice. I mean, it needs to have, the character needs to be preserved, because the buildings are cool, and there's.
It's a nice little
it's a
neighborhood.
nice size, and so,
Yeah, I was thinking the single family, the extra house should be a single family. It's good to
yeah.
get home ownership in there when you
Right, right.
can,
Yeah.
but, you know, 2 less cars or something,
Yeah.
so 2 families, whatever, something like that. But we'll deal with that next month.
Third quarter.
Good. I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? The meeting is adjourned at